Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 451. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
It's a DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about the books we read this week. It's really that simple. Oh, and Connor's not here if that wasn't obvious. I'm sure you're all concerned.
He was, but we threatened him. He said, he better not show up.
Last
week was too long.
I think he said he had a Saturday off like next week, maybe, so he might be here next week. But I mean, that could change. Everything's always up in the air.
Yeah, if you guys are good listeners, you're getting Connor next week.
So yes, coming up.
You better leave us love in the comments.
All right, Matt. Abusive podcaster and podcasting relationship.
You better show us love or we'll give you Connor.
All right, coming up on today's show, we have Batman 158. We have Superman 24, Wonder Woman 19. We get the whole Trinity this week. That's weird.
Yeah,
Absolute Wonder Woman issue 6, Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 1, Green Lantern 21, Justice League Unlimited 5, Black Canary Best of the Best 5, Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween issue 6, and I have Patriot books. I did 2 somehow. I didn't really need to. I could have done 1 next week, but I thought I was ahead of the game. I had time. I thought I'll do the 2. And I can get started on next month's even earlier.
And look, I just want to say that I'm very proud of myself for not reading Flash, despite having a very cool-looking Eclipso cover.
The fact that you were even tempted, though, speaks volumes.
Look, it probably would have happened on this week. Maybe for a laugh, I might have, right? Because like the other week, I read Titans just to have the Starfire cover, you know.
Yes, I remember. Yes,
but there's just too many books this week, and I couldn't even fit in one of my other books that I've normally been reading. So, you know, no time for jokes this week.
No, or 80 pages of Harley Quinn farting.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that was the thing that was out this week. So, we'll get to all that and whatnot. Matt, how was your week?
Well, we talked a little bit before the show. I was subjected to watching Wicked last night, which. It's fine. I'm not a fan of musicals. P doesn't like musicals even more than I don't like musicals. I'm pretty mid-range when it comes to it. It's too much of a musical for my tastes. But yeah, production on it is great though. Like it looks, you know, it's nice that they used actual sets and not a whole bunch of green screen, right? So there's that. I finished Shoresy season 3.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
It had sets. I mean, that had that going for it.
I'm just saying, like, the performances and stuff are all there. Like, again, it much deserved all the praise that it got. It's not a movie for me.
Who's the pop star that's in it?
Oh, Ariana Grande.
Okay, yes, I've heard of her.
I don't like her just on standards. As it was, I'm not a fan of her music. I don't like her acting. So being subjected to her for 2 hours and 40 minutes, because she's like the co-lead. 2
hours and 40 minutes,
and it's only a part 1. There's a whole other half.
I can't wait for Wicked Part 2, Battle of the Five Armies.
Yes, right. So that said, it opens up with a talking bear, and I looked at my wife and said, "You didn't tell me there's a talking bear in this. I'd have watched this sooner." She didn't find that as funny. But, you know, being a self-parody, that's what I do.
Yeah. I don't know. I've still been playing video games a lot this past week, but for Collector's Cut, which is one of our movie shows that I do with David, just to explain for the audience, where we go through either we'll do like a director season, an actor season, or maybe like an era of, or you know, for example, a few seasons ago we did a season of 90s erotic thrillers, right? So we'll do like things in little seasons where there's like a number of episodes all focusing around something. But the most obvious thing that we sometimes do is just go through a franchise. So just this week we started recording the Mission Impossible season. So I watched the first of those in a long ass time. So
how's it hold up?
It's a mixed bag. Like there's good moments in it. There's like very specific scenes that are really good, and it's kind of what the most memorable things from the movie. And like the effects and the action hold up shockingly well for 1996. But the plot is a convoluted goddamn mess.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's hard to care
sounds
about
like a Mission
anything.
Impossible. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I feel like the later ones are less egregious though, because they know what they're there for, so they kind of like build up to the set pieces more. Whereas Mission Impossible 1, it kind of feels like they expect us to care about the mystery plots and things like that. And, you know, and honestly, after Megalopolis, I just can't take John Voight seriously anymore. So that's a problem.
And that's Brian De Palma, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Because they were, oh God, that has a murderer's row of directors when you go through them, you know.
Well, the first half does. Then it became just Christopher McQuarrie.
Yeah. So I was going to say, it goes De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, and then McQuarrie.
And then
right?
just McQuarrie then onwards.
Yeah, like you look at those and to you know, each of them to varying standards. I don't think there's necessarily a bad one. I need to rewatch 2. 2's been a while. I know that one's kind of rough.
Yeah, I remember it being rough, but I've not seen it since probably the year it came out. So we'll see how that goes. But just
I remember the fight on the street bikes. Like they're driving at each other. I remember that part. And in the theater being like, this looks really cool. Because I'm like 13, 14 maybe. And I'm like, yeah, I need more of that Limp Bizkit soundtrack though.
So that's the thing. Because the season that's just wrapping up this weekend as far as releases goes is Bruce Lee season. So our review, by the time this goes out, it'll be yesterday. The review for Game of Death, which was the final Bruce Lee movie, went out. And that's the one that only had like 12 minutes of footage from what he filmed before he died.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's kind of
okay. That's the one with Kareem? He fights Kareem in that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which then they try to redo but in reverse in Rush Hour 3 with Chris Tucker and a very tall Chinese man.
I don't think I've seen Rush Hour 3. I believe I stopped after 2 because I had self-respect.
I think I've seen it. I remember it being a thing. I don't remember what the story. I think they go to New York. Because I know 2, they come to Vegas. It might start in New York, but
but it's not. In 2, they start in Hong Kong because the whole thing was it's a flip of
reverse
Jackie Chan being in the US at the start. But I think by the end they go to Vegas. Yeah. I don't know. That was a movie that appealed to me when I was a child. 2 hit at the right time. By the time 3 came out, I was a lot older and was like, I don't think so. I don't think that appeals to me anymore.
You're talking to someone that got the Rush Hour 2 poster from their local video store, and it was on his wall for a very long time. So I love those first 2. But yeah, I don't remember 3. So how much does it show you how much I love the franchise? Also, then I found out there was a TV show. At one point.
Well, I saw the pilot. It was terrible, and I think it got cancelled after one season. And so were they called Rush Hour just purely because in the first movie the thing that sort of got everything going was like a kidnapping that happened during Rush Hour? Because I'm trying to think of the rest of the movie or the second movie and be like, this has nothing to do with Rush Hour as a concept.
No, I think they were just. I feel like they had a title and they wrote the movie around it. You know what I mean? So, and then it just became a thing. Funnily enough, there was a tag team here locally that essentially used the concept of Rush Hour to be the tag team, and they only got 2 matches in because there was only so much stuff from the movies they could borrow from. Very entertaining, you know, just like those first 2 movies. But the third match, where they didn't have much to pull from, again, much like the movie.
Yeah, hold on. Are the first 2 movies still entertaining? Because I've got a feeling if I watched them again now, I wouldn't be that entertained anymore.
I think it depends on how much you like Chris Tucker. Because I feel like Jackie Chan's going to stand out, right?
That's a big depends.
Yes. Because I feel like Jackie Chan's always going to show up no matter what, right? Like, even the worst Jackie Chan movie is still pretty fun to watch. You know, but...
I don't know. Vague memories of the tuxedo says otherwise, but I mean,
hey, Jennifer Love Hewitt's in the tuxedo, so you know it's got that going for it.
All right, stop thinking with your little Matt and take things seriously. God damn it!
Hey, my wife's out of the house. I can praise Jennifer Love Hewitt all I want right now. If she so hears, you'll see stuff get thrown.
Is this like you can't praise any woman, or does she just know you have to have a specific thing for her, so it upsets her?
Fun, pathetic fact about me is I used to have a picture of Jennifer Love Hewitt in my wallet. So people would look, so I couldn't pay for things. And they go, oh, is that your girlfriend? And then they would look at it. and it was Jennifer Love Hewitt. When I got together with my now wife, she did not think it was funny, and then had instant heat on Jennifer Love Hewitt ever since. So, yeah. Oh, it was such a fun bit.
Well, I know what Matt's getting for Christmas. A nice framed photo of Jennifer Love Hewitt, maybe with a signature.
Yep. So there's two people that are persona non grata. Well, two and a half, because it's Jake Gyllenhaal, right? It's Jennifer Love Hewitt, and it's sometimes Anne Hathaway.
Okay, so Jake Gyllenhaal's because he upset Taylor Swift, and your wife's a sicko who likes Taylor Swift too much.
She's in a cult. Mm-hmm.
And why Anne Hathaway? What did Hathaway do?
I don't know. She just doesn't like Anne Hathaway. I just feel that it's beef that she would get told way back when her hair was longer and straight, she'd look a lot like Anne Hathaway. And I just don't know. She just has beef. Maybe it's just one of those things where she just doesn't like her, but she can't explain why. But we have seen movies with Anne Hathaway in them, and she doesn't complain. So, okay. Yeah. That's why I say half, because she'll tolerate Anne Hathaway. Jennifer Love Hewitt, forget about it. I sent her the new casting thing for I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot remake. And she goes, I will not be seeing this in theaters. And I was like, yeah, but Freddie Prinze Jr., honey, they got him back.
Is that a selling point to her?
Well, I thought maybe. It's not just Jennifer Love Hewitt. Let alone that movie. I mean, I'll go see it. I like a good slasher. That said, rewatching that first, I Know What You Did Last Summer, that movie's kind of not good.
Oh yeah, it's not good. They were never good, Matt.
Yes.
When you say I like a good slasher, I'm like, then why are you talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Yes. Well, because again, 11, 12-year-old me was fascinated with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Right? Yeah. So,
Okay. Also, it's only half hating Anne Hathaway. It is half away.
Yes.
Or Hathaway. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Anyway,
yes.
Let's move on. I don't even know where to go from this weird
Hey, why don't we talk about the Kindle rankings?
We can't talk about the Kindle rankings. The list formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10, everyone. Looking at this week's books here. So, Matt, what do you think number one is as of right now on the Kindle store rankings for comics?
Well, here's where it gets a little dodgy, right? Because we have Hush 2, right? And that's got Jim Lee, that's got Jeph Loeb returning to the book, right?
I love how you keep referring to it like it's a miniseries, but it's actually just Batman 158.
yeah. But all the push is about Hush 2, right? But this is also not physical copies, right? So like I could see my shop had ordered a bunch of these because of the return of Jim Lee and whatnot. But being that this is digital and that Absolute Wonder Woman has become my favorite of the Absolute books over the last 6 issues, I'm going to go with Absolute Wonder Woman.
That is incorrect.
Is it Batman 158?
It is Batman 158.
God damn it. I should have trusted my gut. Yep. I overthought it, got in over my skis, and here we go.
And number 2 is quite surprising.
Mm-hmm. Is it a Marvel book?
Nope.
No. Okay. So you said it's quite surprising.
I think it's surprising.
Well, there's only one way to... It's not Marvel. It's not Absolute Martian Manhunter, is it?
It is.
Wow!
That's number 2 cool. Right now. On the
that is good. Because
very surprising.
If it keeps selling, we'll get more of it.
Well, they already announced that. I mean, I'll slip this news in here, but the creator on the socials this week confirmed that DC had bumped it from 6 to 12 issues. So you're getting a year of Absolute Martian Manhunter.
Bravo, fans. Way to show up and support.
Yeah. The Absolute name's still carrying some weight. Number 3 is Absolute Wonder Woman, so it got bumped to 3, but I mean, it's another Absolute book and a big Batman arc starting that did it. So it's all gravy for DC, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Number 4 is Ultimate Spider-Man. Number 5 is X-Manhunt Omega. What a name! Pardon me. Sorry, I'm processing like dinner or something still. Number 6, Justice League Unlimited. Number 7 is Ultimate Wolverine. Number 8 is Uncanny X-Men. Number 9 is Superman. And number 10 is Wonder Woman. So 6 out of the top 10 are DC, including those top 3 spots. So pretty good showing for DC. They did put a lot of books this week. Looking a little bit further down to see where the other big heavy DC books landed. Green Lantern's at 13, Black Canary's at 15, Last Halloween is at 16. So yeah. And then Green Arrow's all the way down at like 23 or something like that. I can't count the rows too much. But yeah, so DC seemingly doing all right here, at least compared to Marvel. As for the rankings, now we don't have numbers, of course, with these. So I mean, for all we know, all these numbers are not that good. So being at the top of this list doesn't mean much. But relative to what else is there, DC did all right. So cool to see. But yeah, so yeah, just to reiterate, the news there is that Absolute Martian Manhunter was meant to be a 6-issue mini, but has now been bumped to a 12-issue series, and the creators seem quite positive about having more time to do ideas and whatnot. So
yeah.
That's cool. But yeah, and that was pretty much it news-wise, though. There wasn't really anything else this week, unless I missed something. Because sometimes when I say there's no news, Connor's like, "Oh, I saw something on a what's that like newsletter like thing that he signed up for some creators."
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but I'm familiar with what he's talking about.
Yeah. Like I just feel someone said this on their thing. It is like, how could you possibly not know that? How could you possibly not have prepared properly? Whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have a lot of books to talk about though, so I think we should probably just get wired into them. So starting with Batman 158, Legacy number 923, Jeph Loeb writing with Jim Lee on the art. How many books has Jim Lee done since we started this show? Not many, because he was very heavy at the start of the New 52, because they sort of launched Justice League with them and all that.
Yeah.
But he's not really been much of an artist since the start of Rebirth.
Yeah, he trailed off. He came back and did one of those during the Dark Crisis stuff. Not Dark Crisis. The Metal, right?
He did like a one shot or a mini or whatever in there. Okay.
He did that. And
to be fair, I'm not saying he is slacking. Like, he's been running the company. He's got other duties now. This is not shade on Jim Lee in any capacity. It's just weird because I just don't remember saying the name Jim Lee while saying the creators in the credits.
Yeah.
Ever. Pretty much.
And it's cool that he's taking time to do this, right? Because he is the co-publisher, or he might just be the publisher at this point. I don't even know if he's the co anymore, but that he's taking time to draw out a Batman book. And it seems like we're doing that thing where if he wants to draw a character, we're going to see the character, So yeah. Hopefully he stays consistent though, because that is the one thing with Jim Lee is that he will get behind eventually.
Well, you say that, but we already know that this book is getting relaunched as number 1 with a new team 6 issues into this, despite the fact that this is a 12-issue story. So there's definitely a break coming. So maybe that they always planned for that in some form or another. Honestly, I think the thing that stuck out to me about this right away is Jim Lee's art, and particularly the lettering, like the caption boxes, feels so of the era of the original Hush. Like they really went out their way to do that same type of caption box. That I actually kind of felt nostalgic, just the way this looks overall. So I actually found it to be kind of a pleasant reading experience because of that. That's not to say that I think the story's any particularly good, to be clear.
Yes,
because it isn't. It's kind of whatever. But
that was kind of the tag on the original Hush too, right? It was just like, yeah, the story's fine, I guess, but that's not why people were there. That's one of the first books I ever bought. I think was Batman 616, which was I remember Nightwing was on the cover.
Marvel Universe Batman.
Yeah, right. But I remember it was a Hush issue that Nightwing was on the cover, and I bought just because Nightwing was on the cover. And I just started reading comics again because right next to my college, there was a comic book shop. So I was just going in there and buying stuff. But I bought that, and then I bought a Jeph Loeb Superman Batman issue. And it had the, like what you're talking about, the dialogue boxes and the way that it's written with that, like the blue, what's that called? Where it goes from blue to white?
A gradient. The
gradient, yeah. And like you said, it hit that nostalgia part of my brain where I was like, wait a minute, this is we're in the year 2025. This is not 2005 anymore.
Don't remind me.
Yes. So like, yeah, it was definitely a weird vibe. And even the way that Loeb writes, it feels very of that era. So it almost feels like it's not in current continuity, but it very much is, judging from conversations.
Yeah, they reference stuff, and it's supposed to be, years after the original Hush, but it does kind of have this feeling of being from a different time, despite the fact that they reference Damien existing and the reference, whatever. Because one thing I was looking for is when it cuts to Dick and Babs in the Watchtower, is I was looking at this page and I was kind of like, I almost feel like Jeph Loeb's not aware they're a couple right now, the way they're being written. They felt kind of different to me. And even like Batgirl's outfit feels like it's technically the current outfit, but because of the way Jim Lee's drawn it and the coloring just makes it feel a little bit more old school. I don't know, there's just, and this isn't even a complaint per se. If anything, the thing I liked the most about this was just how kind of old school it felt.
Well, and when was the last time we saw Babs in the outfit? She's just been Oracle lately.
Yeah, she's not in the outfit too often. But we saw her a little bit. I think she had the outfit in Birds for a little bit when she was being, in that other dimension stuff. Yeah,
that might have been, but not like here where she's in the Watchtower manning the computers in full Batgirl costume.
She tends to be out of costume at the computer, but in costume if she's out in the field. That tends to be like where Emma was now. I'll be here's the other thing about the art is so the whole thing, right, the start of this issue is that like the Joker seems to be doing all of his greatest hits. He's poisoned the reservoir, he's stolen a bunch of piranha for all his usual tricks, and Batman shows up, tries to stop him, gets hit in the water, but this big mute guy grabs Joker, right, and that's something that goes off elsewhere. But Batman's in the water and he's kind of like drowning or whatever, and he's pulled out by a helicopter, and a woman goes to give him mouth to mouth. Now this turns out to be Talia. However, on that first panel where she's giving mouth to mouth, I straight up thought it was Jessica Cruz.
Yeah. It's the green, right? And the dark hair.
It's the dark hair, the white gloves, and there's like a sort of green tint to her outfit, which, depending on the shading, you could assume that's a Green Lantern outfit. And then the next page was like, oh no, it's just Talia, and her suit's just kind of a green. Like once you see like from a different angle, you can tell it's not her. But just that very first panel, I was like, wait, why is Jessica Cruz in this? Wait, does Jim Lee just not? He's just like, oh, I wanted Jessica Cruz. I've not drawn her before.
She's always wanted to give Batman a big old smooch.
Well, apparently, yeah. So I just
also a small art thing. If those were meant to be red belly piranhas, that's not what red belly piranhas look like. So these look like a different kind of fish.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. So
to be fair, Matt, they have been Jokerized. Have we taken that into account?
Yeah, but like, so piranhas are a more round fish. These look like a sturgeon or something along that. So, yeah, like these are like a long fish. Red belly piranhas are what you typically would think of as a piranha. They're shaped more like I'm trying to think. They're more round than they are long. So, not to beat them up too much. But that did something that bothered me. I think those are piranha.
That sounds more like just a lack of research than it does a drawing skill issue to me.
Yeah. Oh no, he was just like, I'm gonna draw these freaky looking fish with teeth, and they're gonna be scary, which is fine. Yeah, it still works for the scene.
What I thought was weird is that we see Joker's been like taken captive and he's tied up and whatnot, and like Hush leans in and starts talking to him. I thought this was kind of weird how it just kind of showed you Hush's like face bandaged up here. Like this quickly and early, especially since later on there's a whole thing where Batman's like, only one man could, know this much about me, and like trying to orchestrate all this to get under my skin. It must be Tommy Elliot. And I'm like, I feel like that had very little weight to us, the reader, because we'd already seen him. We already knew it was him, so it didn't feel like a big deal when Batman figured it out. So I don't know, a bit in the strange side of the writing for me there. So consider that a bit of a critique. But, he's basically, Batman's looking at his damaged suit and he's trying to think, was all this random? Was it planned? What is going on here? Basically, what it ultimately boils down to is when Batman goes looking and ends up tracing everything to the old amusement park Joker's used before, And I did appreciate the whole thing where there's like a leftover dummy from back when Joker was tormenting Jim Gordon. I thought that was a neat little touch. But it's all basically just this idea that he goes and finds Joker all tied up, and he's been like stabbed in the right places, that he's like losing blood, and he's going to die. And over the comms, the voice comes in and just says, "Hey, you can just let him die. Like, you wouldn't technically be killing him even. You could just let him go, and no one would know." So Batman, of course, isn't going to do that. He immediately starts trying to take Joker down, even though Joker's not exactly been very helpful. he's laughing his ass off.
So what did Hush do to him where there's that big crack, right? And you see Joker's toes curl over, you know? Like, he put something in his mouth. Did he break Joker's jaw? Like, is that what that's supposed to be representative of?
Page. Hold on.
It's the one where it's right after he's thrown the little scalpels at him.
And he's hold on,
because he's got the mouth thing in when you go to the dentist that keeps your mouth open.
He still has all of his teeth later on. He still has his tongue, so I can only assume he's broken his jaw.
That's what I'm assuming. So when Joker's laughing here at the end, and Jim Lee draws his face like that, his jaw is a bit off center.
I think it's just hanging in there as opposed to moving up and down. Yeah,
you know. So I got to give him credit on the art there, because I wasn't quite sure what was happening until we get to that reveal of the Joker. But I just wanted to make sure that's how you read it too. Yeah.
I didn't really give it too much thought really in the moment. It was just kind of basic torture for the most part. But I do wonder though, is each issue going to be this just going to be Hush does something to a villain to like see how Batman reacts to it, or to try and push Batman or whatever. So because I could see that feeling a little bit repetitive if that's what it's going to be each issue.
Well, so what do we think that Hush wants this time around? Because I can't remember the last time I read Hush. Right, he's been gone for a long time. Like we just had the Shush character, right, in Batman and Robin.
Hush, right, Shush.
Right?
I think my thing here is that the way Batman like sort of builds up at the end, he's like, only one person could do this. There's only one man who could play this game. It must be Tommy Elliott. Hush has returned. And I kind of felt like, I feel like you're building him up bigger than he actually is. Like, Hush was a fun enough story for what it was when it came out, but he's not like, as far as like villains that have joined the Rogue Gallery, there's been some since then that I think feel like bigger deals than Hush did.
Yeah.
They feel like cooler than Hush did.
Oh, for sure, because the thing with Hush is he was doing everything from behind the scenes. He was puppeteering everything. And the reason he was wearing the bandages, right, is he was trying to replace Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
Right? So that's where the reveal comes in that original story, that they unravel and it's Bruce staring at himself. Right? And then when Heart of Hush kicks off, Paul Dini writes him where Hush has started impersonating Bruce across because he made the escape and whatever. So now at this point, it's like, well, is he still going to keep trying to make this personal? Is that where the power still comes from? Right? Is because he can do this. But like you said, if it's just going to be him going after these criminals, and it's like, is he just going to try to be a better Batman? Like, what's the point here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the point is yet. I just, for what I was getting at is that it tries to treat Hush like he's a really, really big deal. And I just don't know if the lasting legacy of the Hush story is that the Hush character is like super, like, I think after Nightfall, Bane felt like a big deal. And it's like, okay, obviously all the stories with Bane since then have not all been good or great or whatever. Like, they've varied wildly in quality and whatever. But it did kind of cement Bane as one of the Rogues Gallery. He is one of the villains you can pull out and he means something. I don't know if Hush has that same, cred.
Because look at the solicit we got for Batman, for Absolute Batman, and Absolute Bane is coming, right? Like, they're treating that like an event. Anytime Bane shows up, it feels like a big deal. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that have come.
It can feel like a big deal. I wouldn't say it always does, but it can if they treat it the right way. It can. But I think what I'm saying here is I don't think Hush. I think if you wanted to do this with Hush, it would have to actually be something that was a reveal late in an arc where there was a genuine mystery that we didn't know Hush was coming back, and then we found out after like 4 issues of like someone messing with Batman that it was Hush all along. maybe that would work because it would give him a lot of mystique. But we went into this knowing it was Hush too. We were shown Hush's face in the bandages earlier in the issue, so this ending to me just kind of felt like, well, yeah, of course it's Hush. We even ignoring the marketing, we knew it was Hush. Right. So I don't know. It just didn't feel like that special to me.
No, but I do wonder what Talia's up to. Right? How does that tie in with everything? You know.
I mean, she just says to Batman she's here to check up on Damien because she does that from time to time.
Yeah, but I feel like her showing up and saving him, that's gonna have more.
Oh no, I agree. I assume it will. Yeah. I'm just saying that's what her reason is that she gives in the issue to him. I don't know. Like I don't think I came into this thinking it was going to be like a great story anyway. I'm just a little surprised that it went to the to be continued on just like Batman realizing the thing that we all knew since the start of the issue.
What do you think of this new character, Silence? The big Dave Bautista looking dude.
I have no strong feelings really. He's just a big wrestler. Really.
Yeah, I do like the design, and I like that he seems to be silent because I like that Hush is trying to corner that market. Right? You got Hush, you got Silence, you got, there's like a theme coming up. So.
There's a theme, and even Shush. I mean, do you think the Loeb will actually include Shush in this?
I don't know. I will give Loeb credit that Loeb seems to still be connected in. Whether we'll see it in this, he seems to be aware of all the things that have been going on at DC, at least where Batman's involved. I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, I won't be surprised.
Yeah, I guess I'm just being cynical and thinking he might not want to use her because it's not his creation. Not that obviously all the other characters are his creation, but I just mean in terms of being connected to Hush, like Hush is his thing, Silence is his new thing. I just wonder if you'll see Shush as like, oh, that's something someone added to mine, so I don't want to use that. I could be wrong though. Maybe he will use her. I have no idea. But yeah, it was an easy enough read. And I do think the art made me feel kind of nostalgic. The lettering made me feel kind of nostalgic. I think this will be a very easy thing to read and, talk about, possibly make fun of. That said, though, I enjoyed this as most of Zdarsky's issues, if I'm being quite frank with you.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like, oh, is this almost over? Like, it was a nice, brisk read. It wasn't anything that was, there's nothing in here that outright annoyed me. And I even thought, like you said, that the dynamic between Dick and Babs was a little bit off, but it still flowed really well. Like they're back and forth, it felt pretty natural. So yeah, it was a smooth read.
Yeah. I don't. That's the thing. I guess I'm not surprised, but I don't have any particularly strong thoughts yet. But I think there's the potential that after a few issues, he might either things will get more fun in a silly way, or they might get more annoying in a way because whatever they go. But I think after this first issue, it just kind of feels like a pulpy, fairly shallow Batman story, and that's fine. At least you got the Jim Lee art, which feels kind of old school to look at. So
look, if we were on an all-timer run from Zdarsky and we were really enjoying it and it had stopped so we could do Hush 2, then I would have a little bit more of a bone to pick. But the fact that got kind of mercy killed, and now we're telling this story, and then we know that Fraction's coming to Batman, right? So this won't be like the main Batman story in like 6 months. I think, I have a very, what's that called? Cautiously optimistic of where this goes.
Yeah. Who's taking over Batman again in September? I forget.
It's Matt Fraction.
That's right.
And Jimenez.
I kept in my head. I kept going. It's not Slott. Slott's done the new Superman book, but it's another Marvel writer. Who's the Marvel writer who's taking over Batman? It's Fraction. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, that's the Wild West. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. But with the Loeb and Jim Lee, I have this weird like comfort of, I know exactly how this is probably going to feel. So there's
and again, let's not get all caught up that the original Hush is like this all-time storytelling.
No, it's
thing.
not. It absolutely is not.
Yeah. So if this is even just as good or close to as good, I think it's still okay.
Honestly, it's kind of a shame that it's kind of treated that way, though, from a publishing perspective, because a lot of people read it as one of the first handful of Batman stories, and it's like, you probably shouldn't treat that as like one of those, but all right.
One of my coworkers was like, hey, I watched the Hush, because I guess there's a Hush animated movie.
It probably is. There's tons of them now.
And he's like, yo, so what happened with Hush? And he's trying to talk to me. I was like, man, I read that book like 15 years ago for the last time. Your guess is as good as mine when it happened, so I had to go back and read like the wiki notes on it and stuff. And I was like, oh man, there's a lot of silly shenanigans in this that I forgot about.
I read Hush in around 2008. So
it's been a minute.
It's been a while. It's been a long ass time.
Yeah, I think the last time I read it, I feel like I made a bet with a friend, and he was getting rid of his collected edition. He's like, oh, if you win the bet, I'll send it to you for free. And so that was, I want to say, 2014. That was the last time I read it. So, not quite 15 years.
I just remember the collected versions I had, it was split into two, and it was annoyingly mismatched spines. One, because it was it was like a 5-issue collection and a 7-issue collection, so there were different thickness for a start. But the volume number was in like a different height on both. Everything they could do to piss me off, they did.
It was ugly on the shelf because I know still if I go to the comic book shop, they think they have some from that era, and when you go look at it, it sticks out because it has Hush Volume 1 and then Volume 2 next to each other.
Yeah, obviously there's been deluxes and like full collected edition paperbacks and stuff now. There's much better versions to buy if you're going to buy it, but. At the time, that was the option. There was those two crappy trades that were mismatched. But there was the weird time where I was just really starting to get into comics, and it was just one of those stories that was thrown in the mix as I was buying a bunch of stuff. Well enough, given that I compared it to the Origins of Bane, I'm pretty sure I bought the Nightfall trades at the same time as I did the Hush trades. I think about it.
Well.
So, anyway, what are you rating Batman 158?
I'm going to give this a 7.5. Like, it's nothing terrible. It's not great. It was a fun read. I don't begrudge it for any of the bad stuff.
That's a little bit sweetening for my taste. I think I will go with a 6.5, which is to say I think it's a decent read. I think it's even border on saying that I kind of liked it despite the story not actually being that good as of yet. There was kind of a comforting feeling to it. So that feeling might very well fade quickly as we get more issues of it. But, given the feeling of nostalgia and the fact that I really didn't like the vast majority of the previous run, this is, it feels like an improvement. So here we are. All right. Superman 24, legacy number 867. This is Joshua Williamson writing with Eddy Barrows and Eber Ferreira on the art. So here's the thing, right? This issue does things that I kind of like, even though I don't like the context around why it's happening. And by that I mean, it splits the characters into two. Superman is dealing with some business stuff at Supercorp, while Lois goes off to help the Justice League because they need a Kryptonian. She's like, hey, I'll go instead. You're needed here. I'll go be Superwoman. I kind of like the idea of her like having her first experience doing that, especially with the weird team she ends up with, where she's like paired with Creeper of all people. It's like, okay, fine, but I don't really like that Lois has superpowers. So ignoring the base level thing that I don't like here, I don't mind the idea of this. I also, have a decent enough time with them catching Mercy and Lex smooching. That's whatever, that's fun enough. However, this is Joshua Williamson, so he has to do something to piss me off by the end of the issue. Matt, do you have any idea what might have upset me by the end of this issue?
Does it involve Mercy?
Yes, it involves a twist that for some reason she's just doing evil things and selling Supercorp weapons off to the Coons.
Talk about a heel turn for no reason. There has been nothing with Mercy through these entire 24 issues that has suggested that Mercy is running bad things, right? No hints of Superman being like, hey, Mercy, we've talked about this. We need to keep things above board. Nothing. So suddenly when the Coons have Supercore guns, right, and they're attacking, they're testing them, wherever that they're at with the Creeper and Lois, And yeah, and then Mercy, not only does she break bad, but she's given herself a kryptonite heart.
She's just a super villain. Yeah, she's given herself a metallo heart for reasons. Right? See, my thing with this is that the comic book is technically, I think, structurally well put together, because the entire Superman side of the plot is him talking to Lex, Lena, and Mercy about all the technology they've made that could be used for helping people, and he's a bit weird about charging money for it, so he's debating with them about how this should all be free for people to use if it's going to help save lives and things like that. Stuff like, you know, robots that can like help pick people up and take them to the hospital and put them in stasis fields, all that kind of thing, right? All fine. And the fact that you have Lois's plot where they're fighting the Coons in the ruins of Markovia, and you know, it ends with a cliffhanger where she sees something and looks shocked. I instantly knew what it was. I was, oh, their weapons are coming from Super Cop. That just makes so much sense based on the two plots that we've got going, that they would intersect again at the end, and that would be kind of like, hey, Superman, we've got a big problem. Someone's selling our weapons from this company to, you know, evil forces, whoever's buying, probably. And immediately it becomes this Mercy thing. And what you're right in saying that nothing felt like it was hinting at this, and I also feel that way. But I also just feel like it's made her less interesting, because now she's just a villain. Now she's like, before it kind of felt like, oh, maybe Lex was always the really bad one and she was loyal to him, so she always helped him with his bad stuff. But now we're in this position with the amnesia Lex, although he's kind of got some of his memories back. It's happening slowly, apparently. He's not all back yet.
Yeah. So I like here because when they come to arrest him, right, it's because the logic is the Metropolis police are like, yo, we gave him a leash when he had no memory because he wasn't Lex Luthor. Yes. Now that he remembers who he is, he's now Lex Luthor, which means he's a danger to society. He needs to be locked up for all the things that he did. So I like that, and I like that Lex is like, well, look, I'll just go. They're right. You know, like he's paying a penance. So it shows some character development there for Lex. Right?
Yes, and I'm already kind of annoyed because I don't know if it's the teaser text at the end of this issue or if it's just a headline I saw, but there was something to the effect of the real Lex Luthor's back in issue 25, and I'm like, okay, but like as much as it was kind of weird we were doing an amnesia plot, like I actually kind of like the idea that even as he gets his memories back, maybe because he's had time to experience, like to live without those memories, and now we can sort of consider how he feels about who he was before, then maybe he'd be a more interesting, complex character. So I'm hoping he's not just a villain again next issue.
No,
I think that would be annoying.
Yeah, because I'm hoping that this ends, right? So Mercy has the Metallo heart now, and she's given it to herself. And then she has made a clone of Lex with Kryptonian powers.
That's right,
that comes out at the end. And she's hitting them with kryptonite. So hopefully this is going to be, you know, Lex showing his true colors by defeating this evil Lex. You know, that's what I hope it goes to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that headline I saw was referring to this weird clone rather than what regular Lex is going to actually become. But I just like, there's so many pitfalls here where I feel like Lex Luthor's story here, given how much time they've spent to him not knowing who he was, is far more interesting if he comes out on the other end, even with these memories, as having more conflict and more remorse for who he's been and wanting to do the right thing. And maybe arguably him having to sort of cut ties with Mercy, who he's kind of falling for, would be like a great show of him being like, no, what you did was wrong. I'm better now. I can't align with you. You know, like if he turns her away and like helps everyone stop her, that could be a bit more meaningful because he's been, you know, having a relationship with her. But I don't know. I maybe that's what Williamson will do. Maybe it's not. But I have to admit, everything with Mercy turning out to be being like so loyal to Lex that she believes that we need like the old Lex Luthor around in some form. Like, you know, we need a Superman, but we also need a Lex, because without the Lex, you don't get the progress where the you know, the battling between them, the race of everything, whatever she says towards the end, I can't remember.
No, but that's the whole thing. Is like, well, then you be the Lex. You don't need Lex. Then you take that void, right? You want to be that social climber type person, and you take that spot yourself. And you were playing Superman the whole time, right? Let's give it a little time, but that's not what it feels like. She's just like, well,
Yeah.
I've always been evil. Ha ha ha.
I think what another interesting avenue they could take with Mercy specifically here, I suppose, is this idea that she idolized Lex so much that she's basically seduced this more innocent one who doesn't really like, he's inherently a little bit vulnerable because he doesn't have his memories, he needs help, and she stepped in and almost like I don't want to say predator, but like she stepped in and said, hey, I can be his shoulder to cry on, I can be there to, and it's almost like her getting to live out her fantasy, but at the same time she's like, no, but I need the real nasty Lex as well, because I need him to, because that's why I liked him in the first place, was like they could do something interesting with a really unhealthy obsession that she has, and even have like Lex realize that it's a little bit manipulative how she's kind of like formed this relationship with him, whilst also conspiring to like be more like the old Lex behind his back. There could be something interesting there. Well, I don't trust Williamson to do it though.
No, because you got to think that she's been working for Lex this whole time, and she's always understood that he's the villain. That's why she came to work for him, right? So she has no need to work for this good Lex. That's not what she's in the business for, right?
But so she likes having him as a little sex puppet dog.
Sure, we could have that. She's not attracted to his vulnerability, right? She wants that, takes command, wanting to kill Superman Lex, and that's just not who he is anymore.
I think she likes that he needs her, so I guess in that way she is attracted to his vulnerability, but not in the same way that she was attracted to like what he was before. Right.
So, but give yourself a kryptonite heart. That's a step too far, man.
Yeah, that's where it just goes into comic book nonsense. Like she's giving herself Metallo like stuff. Yeah, like all right, whatever.
There was another thing that the Kuns mentioned is that she has, it says, her power like the one from New Kandor, right? So I'm wondering if that's hinting at was New Kandor where Zod was? Was that the setup?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so they're hinting at that too.
Maybe I don't know. Actually, on that subject though of like not remembering something, when they were going to like Markovia or the ruins of Markovia, there was an editor's note or someone said something in the issue about like what happened here, and the editor's note said, "Oh, and this was something that happened, back in whatever event it was," and I was like, I could not have. If you asked me to guess 100 times right now, I cannot tell you what happened in the Markovia. Oh, it was the Ra's al Ghul story. It was the one where he got assassinated. It was the end of that story. Apparently, this happened to Markovia, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, that was all the Leviathan stuff. Leviathan raised Markovia because they were trying to take out Ra's.
Okay, that sounds familiar. But up
until this issue, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that. When they said the ruins of Markovia, I'm like, what happened to Markovia? I'm like, I read that story.
Well, because you're also reading Batman and the Outsiders, so you're spending some time in Markovia recently, back in its glory days.
That's true. Yeah. I'm talking about that later on today.
Yeah, so... But yeah, her having that heel turn at the end really soured me because I was mostly enjoying everything. Like again, when Lex didn't fight the police chief, I was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. I have to go. And it's like, is that a play for him to no, I'm laying low longer? I don't know. But the fact that he was just like, yeah, no, this is who I was. I need to pay a price for it. I like all that. And then for Mercy to be like, oh yeah, I've been selling it. I've been doing this the whole time. I need to take, sure, Supercore is yours, but it needs to be more like Luthor Core. I was just like, oh God, this is frustrating.
Yeah. As far as the art goes, there's two artists here. I do like Barrows for the most part. I've liked him ever since his stuff on Detective Comics back when we started the show. Yep. I do think Ferreira's art, which I think is all the Lois and Markovia stuff, if I was to just quickly guess.
Here's the thing: is Ferreira and Barrows are very similar because the stuff with Superman and Lena that I just turned to looks a lot like Barrows, but so does the Lois stuff in. So I wonder if they just split pages because I don't see a designation on here. Let me look.
No, there is some pages of the Superwoman stuff that feels a little different to me, but I mean I could be.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they just split pages because there's no credit on who did what page here. So yeah, but they both complement each other very well. Like the art styles are not different enough to make you.
Yeah, but I do, like, as much as you're saying that, I do think there's, like, one of the artists is better at doing faces, and I think Barrows is the one that's better at doing faces, because there's some panels, and it's particularly in the Superwoman stuff, it's when a Creeper says, hey, you need to look at this Superwoman, and he shows her the big gun. Like, those faces there look a lot flatter than the rest of the faces in most of the issue, and I think that stuck out to me as being a little bit weaker. Generally speaking, though, I quite like the action layouts and the kind of the moodiness of it. There's pouring rain the entire time during all that Markovia stuff that looks quite good. I like the, just kind of the moodiness of Barrows, because he does a lot of shading typically. Yeah. So, like even that panel of Superwoman walking in at the end with the giant super cannon and being like, we've got a problem. I think some of that stuff looks pretty good. So, no. Admittedly, is Eddy Barrows the right choice for Superman? Arguably, there's probably better characters that suit him more. Yeah. But it's quite interesting sometimes seeing an artist who's maybe better doing Batman, doing a couple of Superman issues just to see just to see what they add to it. And
yeah. I don't know if it's because I read so much of his Freedom Fighter stuff, because Eddy Barrows is doing a lot of that. I always associate Barrows with, like, Hawkman, like this kind of dark and gritty kind of character. But I like that it seems to contrast with Superman here, and it adds, like, this darker tone to the story, especially when you look at it from we know where it goes with the evil Lex at the end. It almost feels like there's just a shadow being cast upon Superman the whole time. So I think it works. And also the evil Lex clone coming up in the rebirth, not the rebirth, but Superman Reborn costume with the black with the silver S and stuff. I just think that's a nice little touch here.
I don't know. I don't know about the decision to put him in that outfit. Like, I get thematically what they're maybe saying with it, but I don't know. Plus, he's also got red glowing eyes, which does suggest to me that she's actually made a Kryptonian version of Lex of some way.
It's just Superboy 2.0. It's half Kryptonian, half Lex.
Yeah, it might be.
And in that case, give him a big red mullet while we're at it.
Yeah,
right? Do the full.
Do you know my problem with this heel turn is as well? Is it forgetting just specifically the fact that it's Mercy and the stupidity of the I've given myself Metallo's heart bollocks, which really makes it comic booky and silly, is the fact that I kind of like the idea that someone is using the resources of the Supercorp company to do something bad and they find out about it. I think I don't like that they only just kind of introduced this idea in this issue, and by the end it's used to do this reveal. I feel like if they'd, like, at the start of an arc, like, brought up that they were developing... I mean, don't get me wrong, I know when they first got Supercorp back in issue 1 or whatever, I'm sure there was a tour where they said they were doing a bunch of stuff. But if like 4 or 5 issues ago, they kind of reminded us and said, hey, we're making this stuff, we're building, non-lethal weapons, and we're making, like, defense devices and things like that, just so that it felt like we built up to this a little bit. But it kind of feels like this issue mostly introduced the idea that they were making a lot of tech that they wanted to sell, and then immediately in this very same issue, there's already aliens using the tech. So I don't know, it feels a little bit rushed in that sense to me as well.
Oh, for sure. So
yeah, everything about the heel turn at the end with Mercy just it's not surprising per se. It's just not that satisfying.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not satisfying. I was gonna say not interesting. That's not even it. It's not satisfying.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving Superman?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
So it's a bit in the positive side, given the conversation we just had, I think. I'll give it a 6. Like, it would have been higher. See, if they didn't have the heel turn at the end, it would have been significantly more than just flat good. But it goes a bit under that because the heel turn annoyed me. All right, Wonder Woman issue 19, legacy number 819. Tom King writing with Daniel Sempere on the art. So this is kind of the end of the first big arc. Not the end of the run by any means. In fact, it kind of neatly suggests some stuff we're going to. And the issue starts with a blonde woman in a bed screaming as if she's about to give birth. And I'm like, who is this? What is going on? What's so funny about this is that towards the end of the issue, because we actually get a lot more of the Sovereign talking to Lizzie in this issue, to the point where Lizzie even says a few things back to him, which felt kind of like a big deal because she's not been doing that for most of this 19 issues, is that he even says in his dialogue, "Oh, did you not remember that there was one thing about this story I've been telling that I have left out for a long time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. The woman in the pill hall at the start of the whole run."
I brought it up at least 3 times across this run. I go, yeah, what is she up to? What's going on there? She started all this, and we have not gone back to it.
Yeah. So the fact that he even says in the dialogue, "Hey, yeah, I kind of left this out. I was intentionally concealing this." I thought it felt cool because it's something we've noticed and we've said, "Oh, when are we getting back to that?" And then this was kind of like, how we do indeed to get back to it. So Lizzie has to sort of demand that he continue and end the story, and he's like, "Oh, what's the point? You know, she won." And it's like, oh no, like she got to the White House. Lizzie puts the lasso around him and demands that he say. But he also kind of talks about something else that's happened in the future. We get a big reveal here that's propelling the rest of this run going forward, is that in this future that we are seeing where he's talking to Lizzie, at the very least, these characters, or at least he seems to be under the impression, if not, we can take this for truth, that the Wonder Girls, the Amazons, and Diana are all dead.
Yep.
They've all been killed. We see this page where Donna's lying dead, Yara's lying dead, so's Cassie, and then finally we see Wonder Woman herself with a dagger in her chest. And he talks about, was it Lissa was the name he brings up?
Lissa, yeah.
And the big reveal at the end of the issue is he mentions that we birthed Lissa, and it seems to be that Amazon who killed everyone in the pool hall and is giving birth in this issue in a secluded location with Etta Candy being there as the midwife, that her daughter is Lissa, that the Sovereign is the father, and this girl grows up to be the woman who wipes out the Amazons. This was a lot of big stuff, and which I kind of appreciate, because if this is kind of the end of this first section of the run and we're propelling into this next part, this felt like a really big thing to sort of move into and say, hey, the Sovereign was defeated, Wonder Woman, literally stormed into the White House and made him carve the word liar into his chest before imprisoning him in Themyscira. But this idea, the context of Lizzie coming to talk to him is like they're on Themyscira and like all the other Amazons are already dead. Because it gives us this big thing to like stop, potentially, because presumably we're going to stop it somehow.
This is the thing that I had an issue with there, is like, they're on Themyscira, right? This is where the prison is.
Assuming he's still in the same prison that he was put in by Diana, yes.
Right. Because remember when this all started, which we kind of forgot, and I went back and I reread that, is that she needs John and Damien's help getting to this part of the prison.
That's right.
There was no sense of urgency early on from John or Damien about this. So you would think that if the death of Wonder Woman and all the Amazons is why she's here to talk to him, right? You would think it would have been kind of hinted at by John and Damien, but John and Damien at that time were kind of the vibe, we need to get this done with before your mom finds out.
Yeah, so, Matt, I've got thoughts on that, right?
Yes.
So far, we've just been taking it as truth, and I'm not so sure it is necessarily truth.
Right.
Because we're talking about lassos of lies, we're talking about all sorts of things. Is this something the Sovereign has just sort of like went delusional enough to believe has happened? Or, because I'm assuming there's some truth to it, because we end the issue with the birth of this Lissa.
Yes.
Who, at the very least, I have to assume like the hope that he has or had was that she would become this foe. And it is kind of interesting that in the same story that we gave Wonder Woman a daughter who's going to grow up to be a hero, that we also have the villain have a daughter who's going to be her opposite, effectively.
Right. Well, he even calls her the matriarch, right? Which is completely the opposite of what the Sovereign was all about. It's almost like this is the next step, right? Is the Sovereign really tried the patriarchy thing, and Diana beat it. So what's the next thing? Is now you're going to try to throw, a female version of that at her and see where it goes. My take on that is, as thinking back to how Lizzie got into the prison and all that other, is if he believes this has really happened, right? If the Sovereign is just like, hey, this is something that you can't stop. It's already been set into motion, and he believes that it's going to happen. Then to him, it's not a lie, right? So the lasso wouldn't affect him on that.
Oh yeah, no matter what, he believes this. What he's talking about.
So like, I think that going after reading that, I'm like, this is a thing that hasn't happened yet. Right. So I think that Lizzie, what I think King's going to do is we're going to be telling the story now on two fronts. Right. Because you don't introduce this character, Lissa, with Emily in this way, to not be going back and forth between them.
Yeah.
Also, there's a fun fact. Lissa, because she says, Emily says Lissa after the god, the child too, is a curse. Lissa is a minor goddess or spirit personifying mad rage, fury, and rabies in animals. Right? So she is this personification of rage and fury that the Sovereign has had against Diana and what she stands for, which thematically I love.
Yeah. Actually, I was looking because I had a vague... A vague, just little memory there. At one point, did the Sovereign say to Lizzie something to the effect of, like, her either traveling through time, or is it just the idea that she, with the lasso of fate, because he mentions that, you're the first one to have the lasso of fate. Is the idea more that it's not happened yet, but Lizzie has seen it because she has the lasso of fate?
Right.
So, like, this visions we're seeing of them all lying on the beach is the idea that, like, this is what's supposed to happen. It's what the monarch or the Sovereign set into motion, and she is, like, seeing what the end result is of the use of this dagger that's going to kill them, but it's not happened yet. And that would explain why, when she was going in with Damien and John, like, they're still talking about Diana being alive and whatnot.
Because he goes... Yeah, so he goes, do dead women still have laws? And she goes, what did you say? And he goes, you thought us ignorant, young one, disguising your true intentions here with bravado and arrogance. And she looks shocked and says, and this is where he says, Trinity, holder of the three lassos of fate, first of her kind and tragically the last. You found the dagger, right? So that doesn't mean that the dagger's been used, right? She just knows of the dagger that ends up in the heart of her mom, right? So maybe she has seen this, and he knows that she's seen it, being the holder of the lasso of fate.
Yeah. Why the dagger? Why is her family crest carved onto its handle? How did Lissa come to have it? Why did she use that weapon? Your true purpose here revealed. Yeah, it's like... Yeah, it's like he's trying to confuse her by bringing up these things that are coming up. But there is, like, that moment of recognition, because when she says, and her eyes widen, like, clearly there's something here that she is... I wonder if this is something that she's not told anyone else. Like, she's seen something from the future with the lasso of fate, and she's not told Damien or John. She's not even told her mum, and that's why this is so shocking to her that he's referencing something that, like, only she's ever seen or knows about. Right?
How do you know about this? Right? Because it's something only she knows.
Yeah, and the idea is, of course, is that he has basically been planning it, however long. Like, he's
put this plan into motion. You gotta think that Lizzie's only a little bit older than Lissa.
I mean, literally like weeks, if not maybe months, most. Yeah.
So this is a plan that's been however old she is here, in the making.
That's assuming, of course, the ending here is. Well, no, because we knew did we know she was pregnant back at the start of the run? Yes. We did, okay,
that was the thing, she was a pregnant Amazon, that's why she killed the pole haul, and then she's disappeared.
So, yeah, and all the stuff with Diana and the Sovereign and the white, the Oval Office, it's all very good, watching him whimper and beg and cower and beg for no violence. And it kind of does that thing where she's making him take off his shirt, and it kind of does like the panels in the prison cell where he's taking his shirt off, along with the shirt in the White House.
Yep.
And eventually it reveals, of course, you get that full page spread after Diana's insisting you know what to carve there, and it's the word liar, because of all the lies to the people and the control of the country that he's had and all the rest of it, and for also obviously for his crimes against the Amazons, which have come up. which is also just this, like, it makes it really devious that his last, like, ditch effort was something he'd already done, potentially, which is to have an Amazon birth the heir that could be strong enough to, like, basically just get revenge for all the trouble that Diana's caused him.
Yeah, and he gets his own, is what he wants.
Yeah, so So
I'm also looking at the knife. The knife is definitely different than the knife that, like, they're the same build, but it's been done up different here for Diana, right? The one that's in her chest looks, has the red, white, and blue and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if that was like an intentional thing. Like they either just covered it with their own paint job, or they made one that was the same the same one that was just to humiliate him and, like, carve a word into him, was going to be the same type of dagger that killed Diana. Is the idea, is a vengeful thing.
Yep.
I could see that. Yeah, and then at the very, very end, after the baby's born and Etta's holding the baby. She's been looking after this Amazon, possibly at the behest of Diana, I would assume. She looks out the window, and we see they're being guarded by, like, Mouseman henchmen who look like they're in, like, Fallout or something. It looks like they're almost in, like, a post-apocalyptic setting.
Yeah, there's a militia vibe to them. They're wearing armbands. Yeah, one dude's got a big old axe and no sleeves. So it doesn't look like they're a unified force, right? They're not like an actual thing. So I get why you say Fallout. They look like they're living in the waste.
It's very makeshift. They've got a similar color scheme, but they're all wearing something a little bit different. But one of them does say, "I sent her the message, told her where we were. She'll come. Wonder Woman will save us." Which makes me wonder, where are they?
Yeah.
Like, where are they?
I don't know. This confused me so much, man.
This is such a wild, like, okay. Yeah. And it makes me, I don't know. Like, how did Etta end up here then? If they're somewhere weird, like if they're in another dimension, or if they're in some weird secluded place that's off the grid, or what? I don't know. So I want to give the issue credit, because I think all the scenes with the Sovereign cowering and begging, and the liar in the chest, I think those were very cathartic and very satisfying, given everything that we've got to in this build-up over the last 4 issues of, like, Diana getting to him. And then I think his teases of this future are super, like, captivating, because it's giving, like, this future stuff with Lizzie a lot more stakes, and this idea of, like, what's really at stake here. And it felt like a big deal, and I'm kind of excited to see where we're going with that. And then this ending was just a genuine what the hell? Like, like, I understand the part about the baby, this Lissa possibly being the anti, like, Wonder Woman, like the Antichrist kind of thing. Like, that's how I'm kind of reading it. Destined to be the evil version or whatever. But then this Mouseman thing at the end, I'm just like, what the hell is this? I'm fascinated.
And on top of it, we're gonna have to wait 2 months, because the next 2 are fill-ins with Tom King and Gilliam March. But they're Batman stories. Apparently there's a godly murder, and Diana goes to Bruce for help to solve it. So one of the gods gets whacked, but
look, if that's what keeps Sempere, on the run, doing all the proper stuff, that's fine. Would I rather just no issues instead of Gilliam March issues? Probably. But we'll see. We'll see if it's a fun little 2-part. It could be a fun story. So we'll see. But yeah, this is a wild cliffhanger to leave us on for this main part of the story.
So I'm looking in issue 22. It says the Mouse Man cometh. The stage is set for our next tale. So the maniacal Mouse Man debuts, looking to prove himself against the Amazon Princess. So I'm wondering who these guys are, and why they have Etta and Emily, and what they represent.
Well, if Mouseman's opposing Wonder Woman, though, why is one of them saying, "Oh no, so it's not him"?
It's Etta.
Oh yes, I've just noticed that. Why didn't you correct me when I said that before? The speech bubble's going to the window.
Yeah. Because I was looking up other things, so I didn't catch it until right now.
Yeah. The speech bubble that I was quoting comes from the window, so it's Etta saying that. So Mouseman's that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Yes.
At least I still don't know, like, why Mouseman and his cronies have captured Etta and this Amazon. That makes me so everything okay, yeah. So I said some stupid things then that made no sense, right?
Yeah.
Saying Etta was here at the behest of Wonder Woman. No, she's not. She's basically kidnapped, right? She's here under captivity with this Amazon. That would make me assume that Mouse Man, at the very least, has agreed to like sort of look after the birth of Lissa for the Sovereign in some capacity.
I guess, yeah. Apparently, Wonder Woman came, or Mouse Man came up first in Wonder Woman 141. So it's been a while. August 1963. So this is a villain that's been around before. And I'm sure we'll get a Tom King take because I'm definitely getting militia vibes from these guys. You know, so I wonder if they've finally caught up with Emily because didn't the pool hall thing happen in like Montana?
Or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this is where they are, if in, some desolate part of the country, and that's why they're in deep. But yeah, who knows? Masked Man, that's so weird.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a deeper pool of like trying to bring an older villain back and making them relevant in some modern way.
And he said if whatever makes Sempere on Caitlin Yarsky is going to be the artist that picks back up. So we'll be getting some Sempere later down the line, I think.
Oh well, maybe we won't know. Maybe this is Sempere's done. Maybe he was only doing Sovereign stuff.
I hope not.
I just assumed he'd be back, but if he's not on 22, then yeah, it may just be like a new artist now going forward.
Yeah.
But if we're moving to a new artist, why can't the new artist just start with issue 20? Why do we have to do Gilliam March?
Why are we subjected to Gilliam March? Yeah.
Everything is just
So back in the narrative view of the book, the way the story was told, the way that it's a capper for the Sovereign arc, but it also seeds so much stuff for the future. Again, Tom King's really good at this stuff.
Yeah, the thing that really sticks out to me on this last page is the fact that on the banner above the little hut, it says Mouse Man knows. So that begs the question, what does he know? Does he know some of the things the Sovereign knows and talks about in this issue? Or is it something else? But the fact that he's keeping this Amazon, Emily, and her newborn here, the fact that that's who he's got captive does maybe suggest that it's somewhat related to the future stuff with the Sovereign. But we don't know. I think that's interesting, and I'm curious to see more of this stuff. And it's a shame we have to wait 3 months to get the next issue.
Yes,
the next real issue of this.
Yes.
But oh well. So we're getting into Act 2. I don't know how many acts Tom King's got planned, but this is the end of Act 1, and we're getting into Act 2. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah, art's very good. We never really mentioned it. Sempere's great. Obviously, we always praise immensely.
So there's some really good stuff in here that I like the breakdowns and right. So as the Sovereign's recapping everything, we get these little blips of the story so far, like when she tears the lasso, right, and then when the Wonder Girls take down the Sovereign's fortune.
His lasso, just to be clear.
The lasso of lies. I'm sorry, and then Detective Chimp. Right, but they're all done in these squares, and there's 6 there, and it effortlessly recaps. It's almost like a recap page in the story, to lead you to that, to lead you to Wonder Woman staring down the White House, right? Which I believe that's how the last issue ended, right? So that's in the very last panel, and then it ends with her in the White House, or it opens, and he's standing there, and he looks so small, and she is so big, like in these 2 different panels. On the title page, and it just shows you there that Sempere visual storytelling is top notch.
He's a pathetic little man, and the art helps show that immensely. And everything with him begging later on and like whimpering on his knees and like realizing that he has nowhere left to run, that all of the defenses have all been broken down, and now he's left to just actually answer for what he's done. It's very satisfying. He's been a despicable villain the entire time. It's been very easy to hate him. So, yeah, I mean, I really have no faults here. I think the only thing this issue that feels different to the rest of this run so far that I think's been pretty impeccable is the idea of introducing these weird new elements. And it's 2 new things. One is the Mouse Man stuff, which feels like it's going to be the more focus of the next arc. and this idea of this future potentially that Lizzie in some way recognizes or knows about, which is the death of all the Amazons, including her mother and all of her, I guess, aunts. I think we will call them. So exciting stuff. All right. What are you rating Wonder Woman?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. I'm almost tempted to go 9.5. I think I'll go with a 9 just purely for the reasons that some of the new stuff that's introduced, like we had to sort of think it through there, and it's still a little bit confusing. And I think that'll be fine in time, and maybe it's supposed to be a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't entirely clear. Admittedly, I didn't think it was that confusing until you reminded me of how like her going to meet him started. Because that had been so long ago, I'd forgotten that conversation.
Yeah. And again, I could be very wrong. I remember I read it a while ago again when they were announcing the Lizzie backups, right? And I remember going back and reading it, and the whole vibe between her, Damien, and John was like, your mom can't find out that you're doing this. So,
and you're 100% positive that was the lead into her going to see Sovereign.
I won't say 100%. I'll put it about 80-20. I'll put it about 80-20. I'm pretty, yeah.
Because if it was one of the backups, it would have been something. It would have been a sillier tone thing. It wouldn't have been.
No. So this was the zero issue thing. It was like the introduction. This was
the special. Okay. Yeah.
The special. Yeah.
Right.
So, because it had been a minute since we had read that to when the series started. So I went back and I reread that. And yeah. So I might have to dig that back up. I'll have to find out what that was and where it is, but just to be sure. But again, this is one of my favorite Tom King runs that he's done, because like we all enjoy his shorter format, 12-issue maxi kind of stuff. But as a run goes, this is pretty strong.
Oh yeah, it's just fantastic. I've loved this run. So far, I should say, because we still got more to go. We have like more end game stuff kind of set up now and stuff to build to, which is cool. So and we have another new character to deal with this Lissa. And Lissa and Lizzie are such similar names that that's not an accident either.
It is, and they're just like if she is supposed to be this curse, but Lizzie is a blessing, right? Because it's the soul of Steve in Diana. And it's this love-given form, and then Lissa is just this being of contempt and fury and rage.
She's the seed of a bastard. Let's just call her what she is. Oh dear. All right. Yeah, there you go. That's Wonder Woman. Absolute Wonder Woman, issue 6. Kelly Thompson writing with Mattia del Lewis on the art. So yeah, we have a different artist for a little two-parter here. In between longer arcs. So the art is very, very different. Although, to be fair, I actually did quite like the overall mood that this art gave this issue.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very different. I do think maybe occasionally the faces are a little too overdone. Right, there's like early on for when Diana takes her helmet off and she sort of got this smirk in her face. I do think her smirk in her eyes feel a little bit too intense almost. But the layouts and kind of the shading on like her armor and like all that stuff, I think looks really good. And there's kind of like a mystical quality because obviously that arc ended with her being dragged down to hell seemingly.
Yes.
And yeah, sure enough, we're at the throne room of Hades, and like that's what this issue is her sitting or kneeling before Hades and him saying you weren't supposed to leave hell, like how did you get up there? And it kind of turns into like a little pair of short stories where she explains how she made one of her lassos, particularly the Nemesis one, which was that the one she just used to become the monster? Yeah.
Yes.
She has we see literally 3 lassos on the floor. So she's got a red, a blue, and a yellow one.
Yes. And that red one, right? Well, we'll find out how she gets it. Thematically, it makes sense why she was able to become Medusa with it, right? With the Nemesis lasso. Once we find out how it was made, I don't want to step on that yet, but yeah, I want to know what these blue and green ones do though.
Well, we know what one of them does. She used that back in like issue 1 or 2. That was the one where I remember how she phrased it, but it was like when the person touches it, they kind of like get the torment that they're guilty of giving out or something to that
Oh,
effect.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was
That's
something
right.
she used back in issue 1 or 2. So we know when
That's
I
right.
don't ask me what color it was. I do not remember, but it's one of those two.
The red one I definitely remember is the one that she used to turn into Medusa to fight the tetracide thing. So yeah, while we're talking about the gods and whatever, the way that they draw Hades here, which I was always a fan of the Azzarello version of the gods during that New 52 run, because they all had these, each of the gods were a little bit different. But I like here that it looks almost like Hades is kind of melting, right? And he has this red crown floating over his head. Like, it definitely makes him feel more ethereal than just like a person, right? Like
he's like he's like blue, like melting something. Like, he's kind of like Dr. Manhattan if melting.
Yeah, very much so, with this red crown over his head that kind of floats there. And so the stark blue with the red, it really grabs your eye. And he's, so much different than Diana. Like, every time it cuts back and forth.
Yeah. So anyway, he demands to know how the Nemesis lasso was made, and she basically talks about growing up with Cersei, and they knew that big things were coming. So we get this kind of epic shot, and this is where I think the art really shines. Is this like panel of her climbing the mountain with the lightning above her? Really good stuff. High contrast. But yeah, she basically goes to the mountain that Prometheus is chained to, the Titan, and this idea that she goes and breaks some of his chains and says, "Hey, I can't free you for good. I don't have that power, but I am hoping to ask for something in return." And she even asks like the vultures that have been coming to peck on him to like leave him alone. She gives him some water to quench his thirst. And ultimately says, like, she needs his blood, and because she's building a weapon, but this weapon will only be used for good. And she kind of, makes this speech to him and tries to convince him. And he's willing to. He's like, yeah, like, take the tip off my finger, get the blood you need. And he even is still thankful, so he actually gives her Pegasus. He like has Pegasus form out of the lava of the mountain. So Pegasus gets this big entrance.
Yeah, so the whole, the mythology behind Prometheus being this guy that gifted fire to humanity, and Zeus was like, no, you can't do that. So being this Titan that, who was a teacher that wanted what was best for mankind, I like that it ties that into Diana, and that's why Diana goes to him to make this lasso. And he's willing to give over, this blood for the blood magic, because she promises to only use it to help. Right. And you can almost say that he also wants to defy the gods. Right. But it is more that he's still about helping humanity. That is still, even all this punishment of the eagle or the vulture or whatever that comes to eat his guts every day, just for them to be regrown, so that they can come back the next day. He's still about helping people all these eons later.
Yeah, in that final panel, she flies off on Pegasus. The storm that's been there the entire time is finally broken. It's actually like a nice sunny day behind her. So it's kind of like a new dawn is forming. There's some hope for the future kind of thing. There's some choices there made in the art that make a lot of sense. But then it cuts back to the present day story time in Hades' throne room. And he's like, hey, but it wasn't just that. You used more than just Prometheus to make that lasso. And she's like, yeah, the basilisk. And he's like, you killed the basilisk? So we get like another scene of her killing the basilisk, which I didn't know what that was before it cut to it. So I was like, oh, it's a giant snake looking thing. All right, okay.
Yeah. So the basilisk is a giant snake that can turn you into stone with its looks.
Yeah,
right.
She uses kind of a similar trick as she used with the big monster from before, where she made the entire city deaf. She made herself blind to go into this fight so that she couldn't be turned to stone and fights him blind. So I don't know. I was like, I like that you've got like a similar set of tricks that you use based on the enemy you're fighting.
She has a particular set of skills, right? Also, I need more Wonder Woman with this gigantic axe. This is very much my vibe. Like the Buster Sword is very cool, but an axe is even cooler.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, the reveal at the end of the issue is though, because basically Hades the whole time has complained that Diana's a bit of a witty little pain in the ass
Yeah.
who keeps like just being little defiant and having little smirking glances and just saying things to rile him up. But at the end, he reveals that he's got Cersei all chained up, and he's like, "Oh, finally, that sharp tongue's been silenced." And that's the cliffhanger for next issue. As far as this issue goes, it's very different from the previous ones. I did enjoy it. I think what Thompson is doing here, with this little two-parter, at least with this first one, maybe it'll be different for the next half, but it basically is just like being used to sort of flesh out some of the mythology of like Diana's, items, right? Because even at the start of this issue, when he's like, "Hey, like, tell her to why has she still got her weapons?" And he's like, "Does she have weapons, Your Honor?" And he's like, "Everything she's wearing is a weapon." And she ends up taking off like all the different bits of her armor because they're all considered dangerous. And it almost feels like Thompson's putting a lot of thought into, okay, we're going to talk about how she got, because it doesn't sound like she was just gifted any of these lassos. At least maybe one of them was, but it kind of sounds like they went out their way to make them because they realized that she would need these particular tools when she goes up into the main world or whatever her future was going to hold. So
yeah, what do they call it? The witch of the Hell Island or something like that, of the Wild Isle. So
yeah, Wild Isle. That sounds right.
Yeah, here everything is earned, right? She's not given anything, and she has to. Cersei has taught her that all great witches use everything at their disposal, right? So they use the basilisk husk and whatever it was, the whole body for other different things. So just the whole idea that all of her armor's infused, everything can be a weapon. Like we've seen it. She has that arm is, she's sacrificed to get out of hell, right? And it's only through magic that it looks like her actual arm and not a prosthetic.
Well, she sacrificed it to get Steve out of hell, not herself.
Oh, that's right, to get Steve out of hell. So, but yeah, just that whole thing where she drops all of the weapons there and she's just standing there and she's like, "Is this better?" Just her whole body language keeps up that sass that Hades keeps talking about.
Yeah, but obviously she's finally kind of, she's got tears in her eyes, literally at that panel at the top. There's a little close up as she says "mother." So yeah, I think this isn't as good as the first arc. I think it definitely feels like a little fill-in two-parter. And I mean, and fill-in sounds harsh because I don't mean it in the sense that it doesn't feel important. I think what it's teaching us about and building mythology-wise is quite good, but it's not like the main ongoing story or like her interacting with her supporting cast. But I do think what it's doing is worthwhile. I don't like it as much as the main arc we've had already.
Yeah, Sherman. It's definitely different because the way that Sherman does the layouts is completely different from the way this guy does.
Oh yeah.
But they still all work. Like the sense of scale here with Prometheus and Diana and the Eagle. It looks super cool.
Yeah. Plus, it does kind of make sense that everything would look different in hell. I mean, ignoring the fact that we got all those flashbacks in the Wild Isle, like, the first arc.
Yeah.
Which
she's in the underworld, not specifically hell. So Hades goes out of the way to bring that up, right?
True. I do wonder, though, maybe it would have been an interesting thing, and maybe this is obviously blasphemous because everyone seemed to like, but like if maybe the Wild Isle stuff should have been a different artist than the real world stuff, just to like give it a different flavor. But regardless, though, I think this is like a solid little like two-parter that we're getting that's fleshing out some of the backstory of Diana and like giving like her items a bit of weight. Because I think the second one with the big snake's fine. It's just kind of fun to look at. I think the first one where she goes to the Titan and kind of like basically says, "Hey, I know this is dangerous because I could use this for bad things, but like I'm promising you that I'm only going to use it for the power of good." And the idea that he believes her, and it's the end of this hopeful interaction. And it's almost like she gives him a little bit of hope and a little bit of reprieve in his own hell that he's suffering every day.
Because she talks to the Eagle and is like, "Hey, go tell the others that, let me pull up the page exactly." Because she says something really nice to the Eagles and the Eagle fights away.
I don't need the exact quote. She basically just says, "Hey, go tell the other birds not to
Yeah.
peck on this guy. Like,
Well, it's like you'll have the friendship of Diana, Witch of the Wild Adult, for all my days. So basically, that means something to these creatures, right? We've seen her with the other animals in hell, right? Like she has a thing for them.
yeah, she's tamed them and befriended them instead of just killing them like Cersei wanted her to, and seemingly that's built her a reputation of some kind.
Yeah, even with this eagle, who now is going to have to, not bring its friends. And then even Prometheus, like, yeah, you only gave me a little bit because Zeus is going to send something worse. It's kind of what he does, So it also built that dynamic up, where it's almost, now that it's building up Zeus to be the big bad, but these versions of the Greek gods seem even worse than what we are typically used to in mythology.
Yeah. So yeah, also there's a couple of one-page stories at the end after. It feels weird to call them backup. I guess they kind of still technically are, but it's just 2 one-page stories by Kelly Thompson again, but with Dustin Wynn and Becca Carey on the art. I didn't know what to make of these. They were just quick little one-page jokes, basically.
Yeah, it's her showing her compassion. So, Cersei's teaching her how to do transmogrification of this like dragon type of creature, and she really concentrates and turns it into a bird, and is like, oh, this is what it's always wanted to be. And at the end, she's like, well, this is fun. Let's transform everything. Which again, it just shows her that like she is listening to these creatures instead of just doing what Cersei wants, of just do the magic. It's like, well, this is what he wanted to be. I'm gonna help him out.
Yeah, and then the second one is she's punching this big monster, but it turns out she's doing that because it's eating a lot of like other little monsters that she's friends with, and she just sort of says, "Hey, next time I might not be able to find you, so be careful." And it's just I don't know. This was so strange because this has not had backups, and it just had these quick 2 little pages. I almost didn't read them because I thought they were like preview material for something else. It was only just because I happened to glance and see the name Kelly Thompson. I went, wait a minute.
I did the same thing. So this is the last thing I read before we started recording, and I'd sent Pete the text like, "Hey, I'm ready to go," and I was like, "Wait, there's more. What else is here?" And but luckily they're just a quick. They're almost like Saturday morning cartoon, not Saturday morning, but like newspaper cartoons. They're very short and concise, and you can kind of just give them a glance over, not too much reading. But Wynn's art looks great. Like again, the watercolor fits this vibe here with the Absolute universe. So
yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a thing that they've. I mean, I expect we might have it at the end of next issue, just because this is a 2-parter. So I could see them being in both issues, but I wonder if this is something they'll even keep going after that. I don't know. Depends how many ideas Kelly Thompson's got for young Diana stories. It's kind of reminiscent of the young Lizzie stuff in the Wonder Woman backups, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are you giving Absolute Wonder Woman?
I'm going to give this a 8.5 or 9. I'll go 8.5.
Yeah, I'm actually going 8 on this one. I think it's still great. It's still, I'm still really into like discovering more stuff about this Wonder Woman, and I like her character and her attitude, both in how she deals with Hades, but also with Prometheus and like the flashback stories. They're really fun, and seeing, like, again, I think the art, while I don't always necessarily love the over smoothness of the faces, I do think something as simple as the atmosphere that's built as she's climbing that mountain and the lightning is going off, it feels big, it feels epic, it feels this like this big journey she's went on to make these lassos. It captures that in a way that I think really adds to it a lot. But I also, like I said this last time, that I would probably be itching to get her back and like developing her relationships with the supporting cast, with Steve, with Etta, with all those other, with Barbara. So I'm excited to get to that point, but I do think this was a solid read. So, all right. Absolute Martian Manhunter, issue 1, Deniz Camp and Javier Rodríguez on the art. So I actually saw the news that this was getting extended to 12 issues before I read it. And it seemed like people were being positive, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because it wasn't that I wasn't looking forward to it necessarily, but it kind of looked like the weird one. Like between all the absolutes, this was the one that kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be quirky, and it might not be for me, and that's okay, because it's just it's a mini. But ultimately, though, when I read it, I was like, okay, there's a very strong sense of style here, and I also it kept me on my toes, like a lot of these Absolute books have at first, where I don't really know what the rules are or what this version of this character is, because like this starts off with like a guy, an FBI agent named John, who's in an explosion, and we get these panels of him being patched up, and there's like a little moment where you see what is in silhouette what the Martian Manhunter looks like in this with this shape with just the one red eye kind of thing, with some of this multicolored kind of like clouds floating around them, and it's just this little tease, right? And I was thinking early on, okay, so this is John Jones, but he's got an alias. He's named John, and he's in the FBI. But then as the issue kept going on, it started becoming clear that no, this is just a human named John who's an FBI agent. But all of a sudden, he's hearing things telepathically, and I was like, wait, does someone become Martian Manhunter in this world? By the end of the issue, though, the impression I was getting is that John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, is more like an entity that attaches to a human in the Absolute universe. It feels like he's bonding with this human, and that's why this human is now suddenly like hearing random things from his doctor or his wife. Like he's hearing their thoughts, and he's not really sure why he's hearing them or even noticing sometimes that they are. But it kind of presents itself as a slow possession story where he's seeing these multicolored like clouds or smoke come in, and he's seeing it more and more until by the end of the issue he's kind of going down like a rabbit hole of like almost like LSD dementia, and it kind of like finally like the Martian's able to speak to him and say, hey, it's me. I like I am you, you are me, we have so I'm just getting that from what this book has told me, and it's my interpretation of it, that John Jones isn't physical in this world. He just attaches himself to a physical person.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened to this book, but I love it. like again, had it very clear. We understood what Absolute Batman was. Then we understood what Absolute Wonder Woman was. This could be just a different take on Martian Manhunter. It doesn't necessarily need to be absolute, right? So I'm curious to see how it fits in to that.
But come on, though, if we ever get Absolute Justice League and this version of Martian Manhunter's there, I'm like, that's an interesting proposition.
And it feels like it's really leaning into that concept of Martian vision, right? Where we always see Martian Manhunter, like, well, we'll talk about it when we get Justice League Unlimited, right? Where he has kind of similar powers to Superman plus telepathy and shape changing, right? And there's always this concept of Martian vision, and what does that exactly mean? Was it just like this heat vision? Does he just read your thoughts? Here, it really leans into like this psychedelic. It like these are what the thought forms are. Like through this Martian vision, he can see what not just see, but hear and feel what the people are going through in order to figure things out, which I think is a really fun concept.
I think what's interesting to me about this is that it seems like he was bonded with John Jones at the time of this explosion. And I think that's interesting. And also this idea that he keeps seeing the Martian vision represented in this very kind of multicolored smoke that he's seeing move around. And I say, and this idea of where there's smoke, there's fire comes up a lot, like that phrase. And of course, Martian Manhunter's weakness is fire. So I don't think it's an accident that a lot of this is all revolving around the idea of fire and smoke. So, like, that's interesting. And it makes me, because the part of it's also that he, like, the FBI guy, despite the fact that he should be taking time off from work, he lies to his wife and says that he has to work. And he lies to his, like, employers and says, no, I need to work. Like, I should be, I don't need to go home. I don't need to spend time with my family. So he's kind of obsessed. He wants to explore why this happened, why this bomber set off this, like, coffee shop or whatever it was. And he's looking into it, and when he talks to, like, the mum of, like, the guy who did this with the suicide vest, like, the mum's adamant, no, he was a good boy, he wouldn't do this. And it makes me wonder, was he, like, being, like, manipulated by, like, telepathic stuff? Whether or not it was Jean inadvertently caused it and he didn't mean to, or is there a white Martian doing something? Is the white Martian also something that attaches itself to people, like Jean seems to be? Because it's during all this, like, detective-y stuff where he's talking to, like, the suspect's mom, the neighbor, whoever, and like the characters narrating and saying like how do I know what this guy's thinking right now? How do I know that this neighbor's telling the truth but hiding the fact that she smokes a lot of drugs? Or how do like he keeps like sort of noticing things, and he's having like these weird moments where he looks down at his wife chopping up some vegetables when he gets home, and it turns into just this weird psychedelic like mix of colors on the chopping board, and he doesn't, and it's like, and there's even a weird moment actually where he goes to speak to his son, and his son's like made little like Play-Doh versions of his mum and himself, and he's like, "Oh, where's your dad? Where am I?" And he points over to like a little Play-Doh of like what I assume Jean's going to look like, the Martian Manhunter. So, I like, it's just all these things. It really plays this idea of him being obsessed, and just like this thing that's sort of getting into his brain and really. I don't even know how to describe it. Like at a certain point.
No, it's this kind of thing of obsession where now he's obsessed with this. But I wonder if he got fused with whatever this version of John Jones is, whatever the Martian Manhunter is, in that bombing. And now, and instead of like you kind of said like an entity kind of vibe, I'm just wondering if this is how a human brain could. What's the word I'm looking for? How it interprets the Martians of the absolute universe, right? It's almost like these thought forms, and now this thought form is now bound to this one person. Yeah, and it's going to have to be almost like this coexistence where John Jones is the person, but the Martian Manhunter is going to be when he uses the powers to do.
I do genuinely wonder if Martian Manhunter is here to manhunt someone. Like if that's directly what he's here for. And then because it gets more sort of like kind of clear to some extent that these colors represent the Martian stuff, because when he's talking to the suspect's mum again, he basically sees this color smoke coming out of her ears, almost like the thoughts are draining out of her. And then that's where it goes kind of really wacky, where he starts just sort of seeing it all around him, and he starts seeing like the memories she has of her son, and it's all represented in this multicolor psychedelic kind of wavy art where it's just kind of vaguely forming the shapes inside all the clouds, and he's like coughing up and he's freaking out and all the rest of it. So yeah, and he walks down the street and he can basically see like each person's like covered in a different color. And it all just becomes color vomit, but it works in the context of like he's starting to freak out and just see everything around him and just like hear all their thoughts. Like you sort of see letters coming out of the colors at one point where it says like coffee beans or bacon, and it's like, wait, is this just them thinking about what they're having for lunch or something?
Yeah, he's fish sticks and someone speaking or thinking in Spanish.
Yeah,
but also just like you're getting these like thought bubbles in different font, right? That is, I'm assuming, the Martian side of this, where it says like, dancing tapestry of multicolored scarves, where it's almost trying to help him perceive this, right? Like it's not just smoke, it's everything, it's how everybody is connected.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it kind of does flash back to that moment of the explosion, which really kind of emphasizes this idea that whatever's happened here, this union that's happened between him and the Martian, has happened in that moment. So no, it's very, very interesting. In fact, at one point he even kind of says something about a memory doesn't really have, like it's not his own or something. It's almost like he's remembering someone else's memory. But yeah, at the end, it's the Martian's actual like sort of talking to him and saying, "No, it's not a miracle, it's me." So it's almost suggesting that he kind of saved the because they start when he's in the hospital, they're like, "Oh, you're lucky you survived. Like everyone else died." So I wonder if it's just a case of Jean or the Martian could only save one person, or maybe there was a reason why he picked this guy. Yeah. But either way, there's a lot to unpack and like discover as we go through, and it seems like at the very last panel of that page, it's like he's standing right in front of him. And I actually thought this was the end of the issue because there was the text at the bottom when I was first reading it. Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, there's a whole like couple other pages where he's actually like there. and we get this kind of like reflective moment in like Jean's face or the Martian's face.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at this in physical to see how this effect works, because you can't really hold it up to light on your
Of course,
device.
yeah.
But from what I gather, it's like a negative space kind of deal, right? Where John Jones is all in white with this yellow background, and he's very much, there's not a lot of details on his face. And then the Martian aspect is basically every other color, right? So I wonder if you hold it up to the light, it just blends into one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and then it says backwards, it says where the Martian mind, and then there's a blank. I'm assuming it's supposed to be the F word.
Yeah,
right?
it's mind effort, yeah.
Yeah. So
We're the Martian mind effort, yes, which is a hell of a thing to say
right?
at the end of this. So it's very much this idea that like we are this now, where it's not just one person is the Martian Manhunter. We are. Yeah.
It's kind of like Firestorm almost, right?
But this is also assuming that because we're still just kind of assuming a couple of things. We're assuming that he is from Mars for one. I mean, he says Martian, so I suppose he would be. But like, we're still assuming that he is still Martian Manhunter in the way we think of him as. It may not be. Like, what if this is like a, I don't know. Like I feel like they could literally like go anywhere with this and say, oh, he's actually an experiment from a laboratory somewhere. And he's only called
and
this.
He thinks he's a Martian.
Yeah.
Right?
Or anything like. And I'm not saying that I expect that. I do still think he'll at least be from Mars. But I just there's a lot of places to go here. It's a very focused story though that really all comes down to this idea of this regular person has got something in his head that's sort of like giving him these telepath abilities, and by the end we realize that he has been fused in some way with what we think of as John Jones, if he even has that name.
Right.
And I don't know. But it was a compelling story. Like I was into it. I was super into like him discovering what he was and like the mystery of it. And because like this is such a different version of Martian Manhunter, it's not even like I came into this with the answers. Like I was still kind of like we're still having to kind of think about it and be like, okay, this must be what the Martians are like here. Like in this obsolete universe, they're completely telepathic. They're as in they don't really have a physical form, or maybe if they do, maybe it's the physical forms elsewhere. But he's just existing with them telepathically right now.
Well, that's why I use like a thought form. Like he exists in the ether between, people or whatever, and that's where, that's why he can read the minds and the history and everything, because it's the connection that's there between the people. It's all very ethereal, know. And again, I'm not as schooled in David Lynch as like you are, but I was getting some very kind of Lynchian vibes here, like when he would talk about transcendental meditation, not so much as the movies or the TV shows, but David Lynch, the person, how everything's connected. You just have to know what to look for, and we're all creatures that are sharing the same space kind of vibe, even thought space. And I was just getting all those vibes from this. And there were a couple times where I was like, man, I don't know about this. This is a little bit too weird. And then like the art would take over and I'm like, at least, I don't know what's going on, but the art is beautiful. Like I love all the colors, because I think this is the same artist that did the Zatanna book with Tamaki. They're bringing down the house.
Was it? I might have been actually, yeah. It might have been.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Because the art is very similar with the colors.
I'm only questioning it because when that book was coming out, we had two different Javiers on two different books in the same week, and it kept being very confusing. So I'm only just doubting it because of that reason.
Yeah. But I'm going to say that it is because the art style is very similar. What he does with the colors, like there's this one page in particular where he's going back through the bombing, right? And it almost looks like one of those old, who was the graphic designer in the 60s that did like the Vertigo poster? And he did, was it Saul Bass? I want to say he did the title cards and for everything. It's very much like that, where he's in red and you follow him across, but he's not colored exactly. It's almost just like the shape around him is all colored. So you follow the red and then it goes into between the eyes, and there's just like these sheets of color cutting throughout. Like everything's very dynamic and sharp, and it has its own style. And it's, again, every time the story, I was like, man, this is really out there. I'd get to a page like this, I'm like, it's out here in a good way.
Yeah, no, it feels like it knows what it's doing. It doesn't feel like just weird for the sake of weird. It feels like by the end, I had a clear understanding of the type of story that we're telling. There's still things to like answer about how this Martian works, but I like it gave us a solid foundation by the end. As long as you're keep paying attention to it and taking it in, I think it makes some amount of sense. So yeah, all right. What are you giving Absolute Martian Manhunter?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of somewhere in that, maybe even an 8.5. I could be swayed. I think I am. I think I'm going to go 8.5. Really good stuff. Really different type of story that feels very different to like what Martian Manhunter usually is, but in a weird way kind of takes an element of Martian Manhunter and like says, okay, let's take it to the extreme end of this one idea of him, which is the telepathic side of things. And it's basically allowing them to just do this really like unique story that feels so different. Like it feels like an indie book. It doesn't feel like a DC book, really.
No.
But in a good way. And it's almost exciting, the idea that this version will somehow coexist with like absolute Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman when we get down the line. So
yeah. So just upon a further research, it is the same artist from the Zatanna book.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So
all right.
Yeah.
Green Lantern 21, legacy number 557. This is Jeremy Adams and Jack Herbert on the art. So this pays off how the last issue ended, which was Starbreaker. Is that the name of the film?
Starbreaker.
And Sorrow showed up to try and steal the Source Ball from our Indiana Jones team that were out there getting that. Hal shows up pretty quickly here as well to give them some backup. However, unfortunately, the bad guys do get away with it, and it's a really cool little scene actually, because basically Odyssey grabs the ball and is sort of charged with taking care of it, but Sorrow, Emo Lantern here, basically like gets into her head and like makes her feel sorrow and like upsets her, and she starts like being like, oh, they're all gone, oh, everyone I cared about. And like and that's how he's able to take it from her. So it's showing how like vulnerable a lot of characters are to what Sorrow's powers are, which is this idea of getting into their head and making them break down and making them just sort of lose any kind of focus on what they were actually supposed to be doing. So we get this big scene. They do a whole thing where she's basically weeping tears at the end of it, and like Connor has to carry her. Sorry, I was thinking of the Superior Superboy there. My apologies. So
look, I'm not going to argue it. However, John's not doing Indiana Jones Adventures in Space, okay? Connor is.
No, Kyle is.
Yes.
Connor's just there.
Like so was Jock Lindsay, the pilot. It's fine. He still goes on the adventure.
I'll assume that's the real name from the movie, but no one else remembers that.
Right? I do, and so that's all that matters.
Just you. No one else does.
Do you remember the snake's name?
The snake's name? No, I don't remember the snake's name.
That's just Reggie.
All right, Matt.
I might have seen Raiders too many times. Real quick before we go off of the scene, Kyle and Connor staring down Starbreaker, and then when Starbreaker grows, right, almost like a Power Ranger villain.
Yeah.
Kyle hits him with the thing. He can grow? Did you know he could grow? That line cracked me up. Just the banter,
Yeah. So everyone goes back to base in Oa, and they kind of talk about what's going on here. And Jessica Cruz is kind of running the show, which is kind of cool. But they basically come up. They reveal kind of what they figured out with Kelly and the others, which is that basically to fix this problem of like the emotional spectrum being all over the place and it kind of manifesting in people who can't control it, they have to stabilize the spectrum. And quickly Hal catches on what that means. It means they have to rebuild all the different power batteries. Like they have to make the choice of doing that. And immediately, like, whatever character says, like, yeah, but a lot of the other ones are pretty like bad, right? Like they caused a lot of trouble. But I do kind of like this idea that they have to accept that the entire spectrum is important and it all has to exist. That they can't just like get get rid of the fear and the anger, because yeah, obviously those are negative emotions. No one's going to argue that, but they still have to exist. They still have a place in the spectrum, and nothing's going to be good if the Grey Lantern and Starbreaker end up, sucking all the happiness out of everyone.
What would that power battery be like? Like, you have the ability to feel great pain. Like, what would? Yeah, that would just cause the universe complete chaos, right? Because is it cause or feel, or what would the emo lanterns be all about?
You have the ability to cause great pains. The BDSM power battery.
Okay, so then it have to be feel great pain, right? Because Sorrow's all about how he feels in the moment.
It's not about feeling empty. It's not about feeling pain per se.
Yeah. Well, right? yeah. But I'm talking like the sadness, But yeah, and I
you
like
have the ability to cry like a little bitch. Welcome to the Grey Lantern Corps.
Hope you like listening to Death Cab, because that's all we play here. But I like whoever the Guardian is that's sitting at the table here. The text in his speech bubble is red, right? So it's almost like Guardians are feeling this residual, right? Because he says, that leaves a source energy that was lost to us, right? So he's angry now that they're not going to be like the preeminent source, right? Because if all the Corps are equal, then that doesn't make the Green Lanterns the police, if you will, right? They'll have to actually work together.
Yeah, I like this idea of no, the entire spectrum is important, and we have to accept that they need to exist in some form, because it brings it in this idea of, I guess, kind of similar to the red and the green, both have to exist and all that. Even the rot has its place in that kind of ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's the same with the spectrum. Even though obviously, some of the Red Lanterns or whoever might give them problems again, all of them do have to exist, and I kind of like that idea. So they have to take the initiative and build all the batteries so that all of the energies are focused and flowing where they should. So Kyle and his team, which is Connor and Odyssey, are given the task of going to find a cache of nth metal. They're sent to do that, right? So they go off to do that, and there's some more banter there and whatnot. Whereas Hal is like, hey, I know where I can get some source energy from. And we don't really get much of an elaboration on that yet, but he goes to the Watchtower and runs into Carol, who's doing Justice League stuff. And he's like, oh, hey, there's my girl. How are you doing? And she's like, no, can't go. And there's no spaces in her text. It's just, can't go, got Justice League business, bye. And he's like, oh, now I feel neglected. I'm going to run after her and help. So we get a fun little sequence where some, F-list villain is making people float in cars. And Star Sapphire here, saves them. Hal helps by saving some cops and some big donut constructs. So it is what it is. There's actually something important at the end of this scene, but the whole point here is that, hey, Carol's a member of the Justice League. She's been working with them. She's getting better at it. All the rest of it. The big thing at the end of the scene, though, is that when they go after this supervillain who was robbing the bank and making cars float, all of a sudden, he just kind of stops and feels like he's not fighting anymore, and then all of a sudden, Dr. Bones or Mr. Bones is there with Hector Hammond, who is working with the DEO to calm down villains. And of course, Hal and Carol are like, what the hell are you doing, Bones? He's dangerous. You can't be trusting Hector Hammond. So, and we find out within 5 pages that he's actually doing really bad things, and he's up to no
back up to his old ways.
Yes, there's no good guy in Hector Hammond. This isn't Sinestro where he's maybe kind of a good guy. So yeah. Anyway, I thought it was fun. Hal basically asked Carol to come with them to go deal with this important mission. So presumably that's what we're going to be doing there. I kind of like that they met up again, but then we split into these 2 distinct teams again. It's kind of fun having Kyle be kind of the second lead of the book.
For sure. Yeah, so this Z-list villain was called Mind Bomber, right? Bomber. And so he's using it seems like low grade telekinesis or telepathy or whatever to commit these crimes.
That's the second time you've said telepathy rather than telepathy.
Telepathy.
No. Telepathy.
Telepathy. Telepathy.
Telepathy.
Telepathy. That's what I'm saying.
No. You're putting the F before the P.
There's no F. There's a PH.
Well, I mean,
Telepathy.
that sound though. You're saying telepathy. You're saying the fifth before the
telepathy. All right, I'm just gonna say telepathy like an idiot then.
No, telepathy.
Telepathy.
Wait, there is no PH. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yes, there is. Telepathy? Spell it.
It's TELEPATHY. Telepathy.
You're correct.
It took me a second to realize you said that. I'm like, what PH? What the hell are you talking about?
You're correct. I don't know how to spell. I don't know how to talk either, clearly.
I thought you just you just flubbed the word the first time you said it, so I didn't really care.
Telepathy.
But then you said it again. I'm like, wait, do you think this is how this word is said, you crazy man?
Yes, telepathy.
I forbid it. Right. That's
all right. He can read your mind. That's what we're gonna call it now. All right. You can do telekinesis.
No. That's different.
Okay, so he can do telekinesis then.
Yes, he has telekinesis. Yes. There's no indication that this mind bomber fellow can read minds. That's telepathy. Right?
Why is he called mind bomber? I just assumed that he could.
I mean, there's no indication he can. All we see him do is pick up cars with his mind.
Yeah. And then yeah, anyway, so Hector Hammond standing there, looking not quite how I remember him. I can't remember the last time we saw Hector Hammond. Was it Blackest Night?
It's been a while, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I just remember he had a big, massive head. Now he's normal looking again, which was quite, startling.
Yeah, recuperated apparently. So Kyle and his crew are off to an old outpost to try and get some intel.
They're going to the Reach, and the Reach, if I remember right, the Reach are the ones that created the Blue Beetle tech. So maybe we'll see some of that type of stuff here. Out in Nth Metal.
There's an abandoned mine that was doing Nth Metal stuff, so they're coming to kind of claim it. But they find someone chained up, in this mine, who's pleading for help. So we'll see where that goes. But the big thing that we do see though is that Hector Hammond is stabbing into Mind Bomber's head and saying, "Oh, I've been slowly building my power back up," which suggests to me that he's taking powers and stuff from people and. Doing some really evil shit. Whereas Hal and Carol have enlisted the help of Dove. Hal doesn't know why she's there, which Carol says is a bit, or Dove says that's rude. But it's hey, she's going to go in and they're going to try to find out what Hector Hammond's up to. So the cliffhanger at the end of the issue is Dove being hey, hurry, and we get this sort of. I actually really like this final page because this full page spread is super mad scientist where Hector Hammond's standing in a lab coat, he's holding this big scary syringe, there's blood all over his shirt, he's smiling, and behind him you just see Mind Bomber's scalp's been all pinned down with the medical scissors. It's just exposed brain. I love this as a horror movie visual at the end.
It's very Hannibal Lecter, right?
I was going to say more Reanimator.
Or Reanimator. It's Reanimator too. He's got a big old bulbous head coming out of the side of his. Well, not a whole head, but he has a big old mound coming off of his head now. Hector Hammond. Yes,
he's starting to grow that brain that he likes to grow.
Ginormous. God, Hector Hammond sucks in the best way.
Dear. So. Because he clearly still had telepathy because he was using it on Mind Bomber earlier. That was the whole thing, is he was sort of calming him down with his powers. But now he's saying, "Oh, I can feel everything returning." So clearly he's juicing himself with this extra brain power. So I mean, we'll see where that goes. So it is interesting though that Hal got distracted when he was meant to being off to get some source energy for the new power batteries. And instead, he's now doing a team up with Carol, dealing with Hector Hammond, who's up to no good in the neighborhood. But
and if you notice, Hector's bubbles are still orange. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some of that orange greed, here, because we're going to have to bring that one back up too. So I'm wondering if this is part of the mission, right?
Well, they wouldn't know if he was connected to. But first of all, I don't think that's the same color of orange you would get for the orange spectrum when we do Larfreeze stuff. So I don't think it's connected to that. Even if it was, I don't think like Hal and that would know or like have any reason to think that he's connected to that stuff. If it ends up being connected, that'll be like a writing thing. It won't be something that's the characters are aware of.
Okay.
So I disagree.
But yeah,
I guess is what I'm saying.
Full mad scientist here at the end, which I love. The other thing too is like, why is Dove there? Like for reals? Like because she's stealthy?
Because she had the power set to sneak into the building. I guess I don't know. Just on these slightly orange bubbles at the end, I think that color is just showing that it's his thoughts. Like it has like powerful telepathy.
No, true, but this had come up during Johns' run, and he found out that Hector Hammond was using orange energy, right? He had the orange, I forget, it was the snake looking thing. He had the orange entity throughout him.
I'd forgotten that, to be fair.
That was the source of his power, right? That was when Johns went back in retcon during Secret Origin. It was that piece with the little gremlin characters that had the orange stuff too. Okay, well, so
that's more compelling to me, but I still need to see more evidence before I. Yeah,
I'm just again them fighting a traditional Hal villain. That's fine. Hector Hammond's one of the OG guys in that way. But yeah, I'm wondering. I know they're looking for source energy and stuff, but if they have to stabilize the spectrum, I think Hector Hammond's a good place to start here. Because who knows? I mean, I remember Larfleeze getting loose during, I think, the Civil War. But we haven't seen anything else to do with Larfleeze since.
Yeah, I still don't think Hector's getting to do with like what Hal's mission is, though. Even if Hector Hammond is connected somehow to the Spectrum stuff going wonky, maybe he does have some of the orange avatar that they can use to put in the power battery or whatever. This is still not the mission he got. The mission he got was to go off and get source energy. This has nothing to do with that. This is still a distraction. Yes. Maybe a worthwhile distraction. I'm not saying that he shouldn't look into this, because Hector Hammond is clearly up to something, but I don't think it has anything to do with what I think it might tie in some way later on, but this is clearly like a pivot. Like him and Carol have gotten distracted because they couldn't let this rest because Hector Hammond's too too notorious in their past to not pay attention to it. So, anywho, you dropping things, Matt?
No, just shutting the door because we got stuff arriving soon. So, getting it ready. Yeah.
Art's solid again. Really falls in line with the last issue. I think Herbert does a good job of being very Zermanico-like, even if it's not obviously as good, but it's surprisingly close for the most part, I would say. Very similar style. The coloring's the same, I think, which goes a long way to making it feel similar as well.
Yeah, it's very consistent throughout. Like all the space stuff looks just as good as the Earth stuff, right? And again, making Hector Hammond, who is that guy? Hector Hammond looking like a weirdo freak at the end. I think I always like when artists are kind of given a little bit of rein to make grotesque things, and I think that here Herbert really stood out with that last page.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving Green Lantern?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with the 8. I think the book's really solid. I'm loving the ongoing story that both Green Lantern books are kind of sharing right now with this Spectrum stuff, and I like the characters have some clear goals, and I don't know, I have very little to complain about, honestly. It's just good, and Hector showing up did feel like a bit of a swerve because it felt kind of different, but I was like, okay, this is solid. I like what they're doing, and it definitely won me over with that last page and him being like a super mad scientist already. Although it does make Bones look like an absolute idiot, but that's that's whatever. That's not new.
No, but that's kind of like, oh crap, again.
Yeah.
Okay, just get someone else in the DEO.
Justice League Unlimited issue 5. Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora on the art. So, yeah, I mean this book's been kind of like very issue by issue. There's something else Inferno have done that the Justice League have to deal with. This one by the end did kind of pay off a few things though, or at least advanced a few things that have been kind of set up. Airwave finally kind of does something villainous in front of the Justice League, so that kind of paid off. Plus, there's kind of a reveal at the end of who Inferno are, or maybe are. I mean, we'll get into it. The start of the issue is that a group of the Justice League are at the G20 summit, just sort of protecting it because Inferno might show up. So we got Wally and Bart are there, Supergirl and Wonder Woman are there, and then Hal and Carol are there. And also some, what was it, Leaf Blower?
Leaf Blower. Are you talking about
oh wait,
Thunderlord?
No. Thunderlord, that was it.
Impulse has the decorum of a leaf blower.
That's what it was.
Waid getting to write Bart again is pretty good.
I just saw Leaf Blower bolded and thought, was that this guy's name?
He's got a supersonic scream, so like Black Canary, but a dude.
Yeah. So basically something weird mystical happens, and all of the delegates at the G20 plus all of these heroes all get teleported to some sort of alien dimension or place in space, whatever. They disappear, and that's kind of like what everyone's freaking out about afterwards. Terrific Superman are talking. So interesting thing is that they have a scene here where Mr. Terrific straight up says that they've tried to consider who Inferno are. And he kind of says, I mean, the Legion of Doom would be the most likely suspects, but like they're kind of all accounted for, right? Lex is doing stuff over in Superman right now. Like Sinestro's in the Green Lantern Corps. Like a bunch of them just don't make any sense, which is interesting given how this issue ends, where it is definitely trying to make us think that it's the Legion of Doom. So there's basically the characters that have been teleported are fighting all these monsters, but at a certain point Bart kind of realizes that like one of the delegates is shifty, basically.
Not sufficiently panicking.
Yeah. Which they represent in the art here in a fun way, where it's like a thought bubble where Bart's like waving a red flag, which I thought was funny.
Dan Mora doing cartoon art, also pretty good.
Yeah. So he basically, accuses him of being whoever, and this being kind of admits to being with Inferno, but makes Bart forget that he's had this conversation.
Yeah.
Uses some form of, here's the word again, telepathy,
telepathy.
To do this. So basically, like, they're able to get out, or see Lister here, whose name I've already forgotten.
Thunderbolt.
Yes.
No. Yeah, anyways.
Anyway, so able to like get somewhere else, and then they go through a portal to some other dimension. But when they get here, Supergirl's like, oh no, we're not back on Earth, but there's a door to get out of here, and we find out that this is actually the Phantom Zone they've went to when they've escaped this alien dimension. So they come through that big metal door, the Phantom Zone gate in the Watchtower. So they're like, hey, everyone out quick before we let out a bunch of Kryptonian criminals. So that's the whole thing.
I do love how they bust through the door. That's some really good. There's just like Superman robots kind of looking like like Helix floating around, and then just boom. And they're coming through the door trying to shut it before. Also, the guy that Bart was talking to, it was intimated by the Atom that whoever ended up with Martian Manhunter's telepathy, I'm never going to get it now because I'm thinking about it. Whoever ended up with that power is in the G20 summit.
Yeah. This was the separate plot thread where we're kind of following and jumping between is Batman, the Atom, and Martian Manhunter try to figure out like where his powers have went, like the missing ones, which is the telepathy, and they're like, it's someone at the G20 has them, right? We don't know who it is. So obviously we, the reader, put two and two together and assume it must be this Inferno character. When they're back in the Watchtower though, and they're able to confront whoever this is, turns out it's Grodd, who is in disguise and making himself look like a human being with these powers, which would imply that he has the shape-shifting abilities of Martian Manhunter as well.
Along with it, yeah.
So the big thing at the end is that he like goes off. Airwave is the one that like gets him out of the Watchtower, so they're all kind of shocked that Airwave's helped them. And he goes to a base here at the end, and there's an entire group of the Legion of Doom: Joker, Lex, Black Manta, Bizarro, Captain Cold, Sinestro, and Scarecrow. Obviously, Grodd being the one who's arriving back. Now, given that this is leading directly into this story that's crossing over between the two books, and it's called, what's it called here?
We Are Yesterday?
Yeah, I have to assume that these are all past versions of the villains.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense otherwise, right? Because Sinestro is in the Green Lantern Corps right now, as is pointed out earlier on. Lex is doing his Supercorp stuff over in Superman.
And this Lex has no beard, right?
No beard,
No beard. Yeah, and it's also funny that this looks like the Super Friends, the old 70s cartoon version of the Legion, right?
Yes.
You got Lex Luthor, Joker, Scarecrow, Black Manta, Sinestro, Bizarro, and then Grodd. And then seemingly Airwave, which I don't know how he factors into this, because it seems like Inferno has been operating for a minute now. And also they're coming up out of that base in the swamp, right? That looks like a skull.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think...
Grodd in.
I mean, Airwave, I don't think is meant to just be like a member of the Legion of Doom. It's always felt like he's been doing it under duress, so I think he's just being controlled by them.
But what's his tie to the Legion of Doom? How are they controlling him? That's what I want to know.
I mean, is it possible they look those from the past, but they're actually from an alternate Earth, and like Airwave just kind of like accidentally like brought them here or something, or you know, something related to his powers, and because of that they've got control over him because he's too scared to admit that he brought copies of all these villains over. I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing.
Yeah, that was the big thing. Also, when Bart scooped up the G20 guy that Grodd was pretending to be, and he goes, "Oh, you're heavier than you look." When it's revealed to be Grodd, that's a very solid joke from Waid here. So
yeah,
but yeah, at least we're getting some answers here. It just you know, it seems like Waid is writing for, I don't want to say the event, but he's writing for the crossover a lot lately. And I don't necessarily think that's where his strengths are.
I mean, I don't know. It's weird because like it's a crossover, but it is just his crossover. Like it's his two books. Effectively it's just a 6-issue arc that he's just kind of doing quickly by using his other book to like be the, you know, to be 3 of its chapters.
Yeah.
So I would call it less a crossover. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it'll feel like the Superman Batman issues are. Like, maybe it'll make it feel like, oh, those are all flashback issues that set up, like, what the present-day stuff is or whatever, but it kind of just feels like World's Finest is just becoming unlimited for 3 months, just so it can go through this storyline quicker, and that's fine. I don't really have a problem with that, per se. This turning out to just be the Legion of Doom, though, does kind of feel like...
Womp womp.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm more interested in them now as a group, but like back when it was like, oh, the Legion of Doom are just doing something else that's kind of villainous and they're just this like vague entity. I don't like it's a double-edged sword, because if they'd made Inferno seem really interesting and I really liked the mystery of who they were, I would probably be disappointed it's just the Legion of Doom, because it's like, of course it's the most likely suspects. But at the same time, they didn't make them interested enough that until they got to this real reveal, they were just nothing. They were just like, you know, generic figures. Generic villain group were just here, so they weren't interesting until this point. So it's kind of weak on both fronts, where if they would have been more interesting, I'd be annoyed it's just the Legion of Doom. But as it is, I'm actually kind of annoyed that they were just so dull and generic until they could reveal who they actually were. Like the right way of doing it would have potentially to have made them, one, make the mystery kind of engaging, make it feel like they've actually beat the Justice League a few times, and maybe plant some seeds that where we could like maybe start to speculate, oh, this could be this character, or this could be this character. But I feel like every time I've seen them in the hoods, it's always just looked the same sort of generic build. And yeah, okay, if it's always been Grodd using Martian Manhunter powers, that makes sense, I guess. But like, you know, like,
well, what does this Legion know about the Green that was able for them to kind of destroy Swamp Thing for a hot second?
I mean,
right? Like, why are they so dangerous?
Well, no, I've got a theory on that. Well, if Grodd's got Martian Manhunter's powers, maybe the gimmick of this like version of the Legion of Doom is that they all have a power that's been misplaced from a Justice League member of some kind. Maybe we'll find out they've all got something extra.
Gotcha. That would check out. Something's different here.
It would make sense given the build up with the Martian Manhunter stuff and the fact that, you know, this is the book that's kind of dealing with the misplaced powers elements from Absolute Power. Yeah, I I thought this was a fine issue. I like the setup of the G20 stuff. I enjoy the ending well enough. It definitely kind of feels like I say, a double-edged sword. It's good in one way because I actually like the villains now, but it's bad in the sense that they were literally just like a blank slate until this point because like they didn't want to like reveal it, which is why I think it's weird that they put that page earlier on where Terrific was explaining why it couldn't be the Legion of Doom. Yeah. I think that was to make it feel more of a shock because it was clearly said to us that it couldn't be them for this reason.
Right.
But
it's Chekhov's Legion of Doom at that point.
Yeah,
it just only mentioned them to bring them up.
Yeah, it just made me think of them because you brought them up. So now I'm just like, oh, it is just the Legion of Doom. I don't know. There's a couple of questionable choices there that I think feel weird.
Now, do we think it's going to be the actual Legion of Doom, or do we think these are, like you said, it's a parallel universe? It's not, like, again, it's not who we think it is, right? Like, as of right now,
I think, I mean, the options are either a version that's been transported from the past for some reason, which the story will have to end with them going back to where they were, maybe with their memories wiped or something. Alternate universe, Legion of Doom, or it's just straight up other characters that are pretending to be the Legion, which would probably feel quite cheap after Grodd was already pretending to be someone else.
Right.
But it's a possibility. But I think the only thing I'm sure of is that it's not the current continuity versions of these characters.
Yes.
For a lot of them, it can't be.
Well, even look at Cold. Cold's wearing a completely different style of hood.
Yes.
Here. So there's definitely some different. Getting away from the Inferno, some of the other stuff that I liked. It was Supergirl using the lasso to pull them in that bubble that Carol made through the Phantom Zone. It's very cool. Like it's like seeing someone use Thor's hammer, right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously the art is really solid. Dan Mora, draws fun, bright, colorful versions of these characters. The only complaint I have is that current suit for Wally is trash, and I hate when I see it. But other than
there's just too many lines. It's not sleek. Flash needs to look sleek.
Well, it's not just the lines. It's just like, why is there these big dark sections of the suit? I don't understand. Just like, why did it need redesigned at all? I'm very confused by it. But
yeah, just more drawing like almost the best looking versions of these characters outside of the suit, right? For Wally, they all just have this very silver agey bend to them. So then when the Legion does show up and they look like those older versions, everything just really lands.
Yeah, I like Danny's purple and green and all that stuff. Yeah.
So and you have Sinestro in the old blue and black, kind of tunicky.
Yeah, it's
get up
pre-Yellow Lantern Sinestro.
So and also I like a more proper Joker. Right, his suit. It looks like he's wearing like a proper overcoat and a vest and whatever. He looks like the Clown Prince of Crime. So curious to see where this goes. Yeah. So, and at least we don't have to deal with it. If we don't like it, we're only dealing with it for 3 months, right? Like, it turns out to be a schlock. We're through it.
Yeah, I suspect this will be a very easy read. I'm not worried about that. It's just... Yeah, I'm just a little conflicted on the reveal that this is the Legion of Doom. Like, I think there's both, like, a good thing, there's like a relief to it, but also, like, it's a shame that if it was well written or if it was compelling a mystery in the first place, it should actually be disappointing that it's just them. But it isn't because it wasn't that compelling in the first place, which is a really weird positive, like, compliment to give it. But anyway, what are you rating Justice League Unlimited?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
That's a bit in the. Now, I think I'll go with a 7 on this. Like, I still enjoyed it, and I still think I'm like into it. I think maybe it's revealed though part of why all the Inferno stuff felt is just kind of I don't know, like, oh, this is just a reason for them to be in this big action scene every issue, is because like they had to conceal who they were so much that it kind of hurt the storytelling up until this point.
Yeah.
Because the most compelling parts were like, you know, the Jean kind of like going a little bit weird and like feeling ashamed to admit that he'd lost some of his powers. Like that through line's definitely been more interesting to me than, oh, Inferno are burning a forest this issue, Inferno are doing this issue, because there was no reason to care about Inferno. So, and this issue kind of reveals why we were being so secretive about it, but it wasn't secretive in a compelling way. Anyway, I've ranted enough. We shall move on. Black Canary, Best of the Best, issue 5, Tom King writing with Ryan Sook on the art. So, penultimate issue of this, we're into round 5 of the fight. And this, of course, and as per usual, the fight is good art, and there's some fun moments in it, particularly at the start when Shiva basically like says, "Let's not fight." Like she sort of just signals, "Hey, I want to say something," and she leans in and whispers that you're a white trash loser, just like your dead mummy, and it's like, and then it goes to a flashback, so you don't even get to see then, like initially what the resulting punch was, but you assume it was pretty, you know. I can't imagine Dinah just stood there and took that.
No, and just let it happen.
But yeah. So yeah, we get flashbacks here of Dinah being trained by her mother when she was still dressing as Black Canary, but Dinah was becoming Black Canary, and kind of some of the friction there where Dinah wanted to quit, and it just, you know, it shows kind of some of this stuff, and they have this reminiscent scene where they go out to where her mother had been proposed to, and this is where she scattered her you know, her dad's ashes, and it's just this whole thing where, and we see here that in this flashback that Dinah's also wearing a blonde wig, because which is interesting, just because like Dinah typically isn't doing that like these days. She just has blonde hair, but it's showing that there was a time when she was just like her mom, and she did have the brunette hair, but swapped it out as part of a disguise. I just thought that was a nice little touch to show there was. I felt like it was revealing something in a weird way, and it's just a nice page with the art, because it's, you know, it's like the camera's pulling back, and she puts her head on her mom's shoulder.
Yeah, I really like that page, and you know, it might pop up later when we talk about our favorite things of the week, because it's her taking off the wig, and she's showing her vulnerability towards her mom, right? Because that's what her mom's doing for her, and then so as the camera pulls back, they get closer, where it ends with Dinah putting her head on her mom's shoulder. And it's just a really well done. Like, you don't even need a lot of the text here, right? Because a lot of the text boxes are of the fight, and they're kind of describing some things. But ultimately, it's Dinah choosing to be vulnerable to her mom. And in the scheme of the fight, was the stuff that we find out is her vulnerability is not a weakness, right? It's her vulnerability that's eventually, I feel, is what's going to have her pull through. You know, because
if she wants to pull through, because that's still a question up in there, because obviously there are a bit of the pages here, and not, there's still flashbacks technically because they're before the fight, but the more like recent flashbacks of like her training with her mum. Her mum's in hospital because you know, the end of the last issue, for that part of the timeline, her mum had collapsed and she's in hospital, and she's making Dinah train by like doing push-ups on the floor in the hospital room and saying, "Oh, can we get one of those heavy machines for you to lift?" And it, you know, it goes through all this, and later on, there's a couple of scenes. One is Dinah like sees Ollie's out in the waiting room, and she goes and sits next to him, and you know, basically starts crying on his shoulder. But when she goes to tell her mum, "Hey, Ollie came," like out of nowhere, her mother's lying there unresponsive, and she's not dead yet, because Dinah does say to her, "I'm going to save you." That's the final page. "I swear I'm going to save you." But that just, it's almost like reminding us, the audience, right at the end, before the last issue, that, hey, remember, she was making a deal to get some kind of cure for this, for throwing the fight in round 6. But we also know that her mother, you know, said basically on her deathbed a few issues ago, "I want you to win." So it's like, what is Dinah going to do? Is she going to betray her mother's wishes to save her? Or is she going to do what her mother wanted? And that's kind of how the flashbacks with her mother training her, because there's kind of a fight that they have in there where the mom's like, "Hey, I didn't like push you into this. I'm not like some mum who wanted her daughter to be an actress and forced you into this life from a young age. you wanted to train. You begged me to like go out on patrols and be a part of this. And Dinah kind of reveals like, I didn't want to be Black Canary. I wanted to be you. Like it was you I was idolizing, not the idea of the Black Canary. So I think this question of her doing what her mother wants versus what she wants from her mother is kind of like this like final thing she's going to have to decide to do in the fight. And it's kind of like something that we've seen in the flashbacks is this decision she's made before or wrestled with before, but now it's kind of the ultimate thing. Do I respect her wishes, or do I say sod it and do arguably the more morally like inappropriate thing? But at the same time, I don't think anyone would hold it against her if it saves her mom's life. So it's like, I like this. I like that King's reminding us of that choice she has to make right here as we go into the final issue.
Because she always defaults to what her mom wants her to do, right? So here, like, she's like, Mom, I'm not going to do any of that stupid training. You're in the hospital. And then she drops down and gives her 100 push-ups. And then it's like, I'll ask about pressing the CAT scan machine. So ultimately she defaults to what her mom kind of wants, because at the end, that's how much she respects her mom and how much loyalty and love and everything that's come because she wants to be her, right? It all comes from that place. So, if her mom wants her to win, right? Like, and that's what I meant about the vulnerability, right? Yes, there's a cure, but ultimately, do you hold up what her mom's wishes are? If that's like her final wish, and to other people, they would see that as a weakness, right? It's like, oh, she's not going to win the fight. But if ultimately the fight's about what her mom wants and fulfilling that, then ultimately Dinah still wins. Mentally at least.
Yeah. And plus, there's also a lot of stuff in that flashback scene where her mom's talking about how she didn't like cops, and she met her dad who was a cop, but she still ended up falling for him. She didn't like cliches, but she ended up saying yes and weeping when he proposed. Like, there's all these things that she didn't think she wanted or liked, but she ended up liking anyway. And I think the art style here is really interesting because, like, all those flashbacks of that early part of the timeline where she's training with Dinah, and like they're doing like like a mugger in the alleyway, they're saving some woman's purse or whatever, some simple superheroics. Like the art there is so different from the rest of the book and that stuff because there's no panels. Like all the art and the moments all bleed into each other. There's no panel borders or anything like that. It's all just overlapping or in negative white space. And the scene we talked about where they're at the lake, where the proposal thing happened, and they kind of bond a little bit. Like again, that is all overlapping. And the only time where it kind of feels like it's somewhat got panels is that page where she takes off the wig and leans against her mother's shoulder. But even then, it's only just kind of made by the shape of the tree branch they're sitting on or whatever it is. It's the closest it gets to feeling like it's actually got panels, because everything else in those flashbacks all feel a lot more like flowing, like a stream of consciousness, not in like a super dreamlike way or anything, but just not like structured and rigid like all of the present day stuff is, where it all feels a bit more sort of steady paced. And so I don't know, it's a really interesting choice to make those earlier memories feel a lot more I don't know if nostalgic's quite the word, but certainly more emotionally just kind of flowing than all the present day stuff. So
yeah, like you said, it's like almost stream of consciousness. It's how Dinah remembers the stuff happening. Yeah. So it follows that flow. So like that big moment of her showing the vulnerability and it pulls back, right? That's almost locked in, because then that is kind of shown again when she's vulnerable to Ollie. It's almost the same breakdown. It's just there's actual structured borders, with the final panel being her leaning into Ollie, but this time she's crying. It's not so much of a comfort thing. She needs to be comforted. So, but yeah, just Sook really, really telling the story. And the colors there, everything is this muted kind of blue. Yeah. So it makes the blonde hair really jump out, so.
Because, to me, this is the flashbacks, the stuff in the hospital, technically they're flashbacks related to the boxing or the wrestling match. those are still contemporary in the sense that we've always been doing that throughout the book. This has always been a part of the book. Those flashbacks are further back, and it's the same when she was a kid and some of the other flashbacks in the previous issues, where it feels like they are more kind of like old memories, where I feel like the bouncing between the fight itself and what went on in the months leading up to the fight, they're all the story, the main story of the book. They're all kind of equal in that sense. Whereas these are flashbacks, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
All right, what are you giving Black Canary best of the best?
I'm giving this a 9 out of 10.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go quite that high. I think I'm going to go with a solid 8 out of 10. Like, it's very, very good. I don't think the book has ever quite hit those first 2 issues again for me, just because those were so perfect in so many ways. But I'm hoping the final issue will really bring it all home. It's been a really compelling time. I do think it's significantly stronger going into the final issue than Jenny Sparks was, just to compare it to another recent King series of a similar length. So I'm excited to see what we do in the final issue. I think it's been very good at kind of keeping that emotional side of Dinah kind of like on show, or like showing her try to like avoid showing the emotion but then showing it anyway. It always makes it have more impact when she does show her emotion towards her mother or whatever it is. So yeah, cool. Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 6, Jeph Loeb writing and Enrico Marini on the art. 2 Jeph Loeb books in 1 week. That's strange.
to him revisiting a story from over 20 years ago also. So
yes, that's true. They're both sequels to old arcs. Yeah, I mean, this, I think this is another consistent issue of this book. I'm kind of still enjoying the overall vibe of it. Gilda gets thrown away from Harvey. She even like tackles him at one point and says, "Bring me my husband back." And Two-Face is like, "No, he's gone."
I love that she takes her belt off like a dad who's like, "You're about to get the belt, kid." And she clearly, I can hear the thwip. And then she smacks him in the face, like on the good side. So she smacks him on the Harvey side, which I think is important, Yeah,
but then she jumps on his back and tries to strangle him with the belt. It's really unhinged. Which, to be fair, in the original Long Halloween, Gilda did turn out to be unhinged. So this does add up with who her character is. But yeah, Grundy throws her out, and that's kind of where we leave that stuff. The rest of the issue is like Batman and Gordon dealing with the fact that the 2 FBI agents who were burned alive transporting Joker, transporting what's his name, Falcone. What was his first name? Mario. Thank you. Yep. Yes, not one of the Falcones that I know well, right? I know
Alberto.
I know Carmine. Yes, these ones, all the ones that.
And then there's Sophia, but her last name.
And of course, Sophia. Yes, but
she's Hicante now.
Yes. Anywho, Amanda Waller shows up, who is currently in the FBI. So we're still very much setting this in the relatively early days of Batman, which makes sense because it's Dick's Robin, so obviously. But it's this idea that she worked her way up through the FBI. And Batman even has a line at one point where he's like, "Oh, Robin, I suspect one day we'll have to deal with her." I'm like, yeah, that's definitely going to happen, Batman.
She's going to be a pain in the rear end.
Bit on the nose, but she reveals that these 2 FBI agents weren't FBI agents, and this was like Gordon's screw up for like not like checking who they were, who they said they were. So there's a little bit of like a tiff between Batman and Gordon here, as they're kind of like throwing blame around for this. But Robin mentions that the body of like Falcone was dragged away, and there's these leaves around, so it kind of plants the seeds that Poison Ivy has something to do with what's going on here. I will say I have a complaint here at the bottom of this page. So Batman's like, "Hey Robin, take those vines back to well, he says the lab because he's in front of Gordon, so he doesn't want to like give too much away. Take them back to the lab and analyze them. I'm going to go check out this other thing." And there's this moment where like Batman's like standing in front of them, and then he's gone in the next panel, and then Gordon and Robin look at each other and say, "I hate when he does that," at the same time, which is a funny enough joke, right? Everyone remembers the joke from Long Halloween where Batman's out of the scene, and Harvey Dent looks all shocked, and Gordon just goes, "He does that." They put it in the Dark Knight. That's such a good little moment. But I didn't think this made much sense because Batman was standing in front of them. Like, I feel like the art here did not make it clear that Batman was in a position to do this. So the transition to that next panel where he's gone just felt weird. It felt like a continuity error.
It's almost like he was just sneaking around them like a cartoon character, with his cape up like this, like you don't see me. And then smoke bomb and he's gone. That's almost what it was like. But yeah, it's still a good joke though, because I like the camaraderie between Gordon and Robin here.
Yeah. Batman goes to Falcone's apartment and finds Catwoman snooping around. She's there for the painting, for some reason. But I think what's more interesting here, right? Obviously, she does have ties to stuff that's going on because she's obviously working with Poison Ivy later on, but I do like that she kind of brings up a few things here about how Batman seems to care about Robin. Obviously, she's kind of flirty, as she often is. But like, I kind of like the back and forth here a little bit. It was a little bit different and felt like it was kind of developing their characters.
Yeah, and the reference to When in Rome, which is the other Loeb sale book.
Yes.
Right? So, because she talks about, it started while she was in Rome, and that's a piece of it, ultimately, kind of what's going on here. Which I feel Catwoman's going to be more key to this than I previously had thought.
Yeah, because obviously they're analyzing the vines and Batman's... I mean, first of all, they're questioning with each other, like, okay, what is this? What's going on? Like, why is this holiday killer not actually killing anyone? He's just wounding people. That's very different than before. But it does, and it kind of maybe paints this idea that whoever's doing this may not actually be that bad. Maybe they're just using the holiday thing as a cover for whatever they're actually doing. So I don't know if the implication at the end is that Catwoman and Poison Ivy are the ones that are just straight up doing that. They could
like they're copycatting?
Yeah, without the murdering part itself. But Batman and Robin actually get distracted because they're called to help the fact that Mr. Freeze is trying to rob a bank. So we get a couple of pages of them fighting Mr. Freeze and his gangs. And notably, Mr. Freeze says something to Batman, which is the same thing that Calendar Man said to Robin at Arkham a few issues ago, and that Catwoman said to Batman earlier in the issue, which is that you're on the wrong side. So it's like, what do all these villains know? That they're all like in unison saying the same thing that is making sense to them. And I don't know. I'm intrigued. They've given me an interesting mystery here. I'll give them that. But they hear the 22 caliber gun go off, and it tries to hit Freeze. It actually does hit him technically. It hits his dome, and Batman kind of like patches it up with some glue or whatever it is. And Robin though runs after whoever shot the gun. And the issue kind of ends, well, it doesn't end, but this scene ends with Robin has been shot. He's been shot. It looks kind of like it's in the shoulder, so it's probably not lethal or anything. But it's the St. Patrick's Day shooting, and it's Robin who's went down. So we get this big full page spread of Batman holding him, and it's all, very Death in the Family-esque. This is probably the thing that makes me think that it isn't just Catwoman and Poison Ivy, though, because I feel like Catwoman wouldn't do this.
No.
Because as much as they're not killing, whoever's doing this isn't killing people necessarily. Shooting a kid is definitely like a line that I don't think Selina would cross. And
she had pointed out to Bruce that he means a lot to you.
Yes.
So I don't think that would be the lesson to learn. You know what I mean?
No.
Because she's also more worried about this, whatever her play is with Mario, right? So I think these are two independent things. I think someone else is posing as Holiday. Why? I don't know. But they seem to be going after the criminals. So maybe they're trying to help. Yeah. They're trying to help Batman.
Because the thing at the end with Selina and Poison Ivy is that they're the ones that have got Mario, right? They took Mario from the car. So why they took Mario and what they're doing with him, probably it's more to do with Selina and her whole, family connection to the Falcons, but
is a woman still a bastard child? Is there a gender specific to that?
I've never thought about it. I would assume so, but I mean maybe it is just specifically a men thing. Maybe there's a different word for
Yeah. Well, we can, instead of gonna drop bastard, but she's the illegitimate daughter of Carmine, right?
Yes.
So that's her brother. She seems like she wants a piece of the crime, whatever it was, whatever's left over. It seems because
she's looking for Mario's mother. That's what she's asking Mario, who's strapped up to the wall with all the veins.
Yep. And that's what she was looking for in Rome, apparently. That's why she went there, right?
Yeah. No, I never read the Rome book.
Me neither.
So this element of it's kind of new to me, but
yes. Also, Ivy looking like an actual plant goddess here. Her hair's all done up with leaves, and it's covering all her bits. Definitely more in line with the Tim Sale Ivy, which I do like that they're letting the artists do, their own thing, but also there's those homages to the Tim Sale style.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think the art's generally pretty solid in this. It's definitely got kind of the I don't even know what you call the style, but it definitely feels like it's doing the kind of the flat colors, not too overly shaded or anything like that.
I thought this might be Cliff Chang until I went and checked who the artist was, and it was Enrico Marini, because they're very similar.
There's a little bit of Cliff Chang in there. I can see it.
Yeah, flat, kind of angular, like the Robin pages. It was just giving me that vibe. But yeah, no, the art's very strong. I like it here. And again, it pays homage to a lot of the Tim Sale stuff without overdoing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the art's pretty solid. I've been kind of surprised with just how consistently I've been enjoying this book for the most part. Like, I don't think it's like amazing. It's definitely not as important as The Long Halloween ever was, but I'm finding myself enjoying kind of the development of like the Batman and Robin relationship, and then this kind of feels like a mini payoff to the whole idea of like Batman, because even earlier in the issue he says something to the effect of, I have to remember that I'm here to watch Robin's back as much as he's here to watch mine. And of course he's going to feel like he's failed now that he's holding Robin with a bullet in him. So
right, because he got distracted by trying to help Freeze, right?
Yes.
And Robin went out after one of the Two-Face guys. Yeah. So, and that's when he gets shot.
Well, no, it says whoever shot the 22 gun.
Oh, that's right. They turn around and they shoot him. So Robin definitely got a view of, at least in shadow, of who this was.
So yeah, we'll see how this goes. All right, what are you giving Last Halloween?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I'm having a good time. So 8 out of 10 for me as well. All right. So every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, if you want to support the show, you can do that for much lower than this, but one of the higher tiers, you can make me read a book of your choice every month. And I, for some reason, despite having a lot of books this week, did 2 of them today. So first up, we have Batman and the Outsiders, issue 24, which, if you're reading the thicker collections, is the end of the second volume. So just to give you a sense of where we are in the timeline here. But so last issue was the kind of the explanation of Halo and this idea of the oracles with the weird spelling, these orb-like entities that Halo once was, and they took her back, but she's still a human, and that's kind of what the start of this issue shows, is that she's with them in their kind of realm, but like she's still a human being, and they're kind of holding her there in stasis, and whatever. So they basically tell her, hey, we're going to make you what you were. We're going to take you out of that body, and you're going to return to what it is. And honestly, this was actually kind of impressing me, is what I was trying to say.
It's suppressing you. You didn't know how to feel.
Yeah, I didn't know how to feel. No, it was impressing me because it kind of felt a little bit ahead of its time in a weird way. Because it felt like the orbs just telling her, no, we don't care that you are a human now and that this is what you are and this is what you want to be. You're becoming what we expect you to be. You're going back to what you're supposed to be. And it felt very ahead of its time, and it could almost be used as an allegory for being trans. And I thought that was a really interesting little touch here. Whether that was remotely intentional or not.
Well, you think what was going on with the 80s too? There was a lot more opening up of that type of stuff. So kind of just this free to be who you want to be.
Yeah, I can see it being more directly intentionally about someone who's just gay or something like that, as opposed to specifically trans. But
there's definitely an identity vibe to it, to that sentiment.
So no, I thought that was quite interesting, and I think this issue is very good. And I think one, because of that sentiment of like these, like the powers that be saying, no, you have to be exactly what you were before, right? You have to return to this. You don't get to be something new. You don't get to choose what you are. So you've got that element of it, which felt very strong. I felt like it was making a statement. But then just the idea of like the other characters, like being determined to get her back, felt like a really nice payoff to the building relationship, specifically between Halo and Katana over the course of this book, because she's very much this big sister / mother figure to her. And when we cut to the rest of the team and they're in Japan, all of a sudden, they're on their way somewhere. We don't really know what they're doing. But they go into the headquarters of the Yakuza, right? And they go to the boss, and Katana basically just goes through all of his henchmen with her two swords, is slashing left and right. It's a really fun couple of action scenes of her just determined. Like, she's a woman on a mission, right? The rest of the team have just stayed outside. And they're basically there for the box with all the scrolls and the incantations or whatever, because she wants to communicate with a soul inside the sword. So again, this feels like it's paying off, because this was set up back in Katana's like 2 or 3 part or whatever, however many issues that was, where we got her backstory and the whole thing with her husband and the souls in the sword. And she does the incantation or the spell or whatever you want to call it, the ritual to talk to whoever's in the sword. And what's funny is that initially we get this really cool image in the art of like a wavy face. And it's actually the bad guy that she put in the sword in her story, begging, saying, hey, have you come to let me out? Please let me out of the sword. And she's like, I'm not here to talk to you. So it's just like a little
man.
It's a little callback to that. What she's actually here for is that in the last issue, they killed one of the orbs, right? One of the oracles. When Black Lightning electrified one of her sword, and she threw it through the orb, it killed it. So she actually raises the soul of the orb, of the oracle, and is like demands to know where Halo is, and demands to like go with it, because the oracle's like, why am I here? I'm separate from the whole. I'm separate from the unity. I'm separate from the hive mind. And Katana's like, yeah, we're going to let you out. We're going to take you out of the sword, but on the condition that you take us with you. So this is actually how they get to go to the realm that Halo's been kept in. And because like it's like the condition, like this thing like has to like obey, basically. So yeah, there's a whole moment here where they transport to this realm of where the Unity or oracles are, and there's like a panel of Halo like with a tear running down her face as she says, I knew they'd come. So we get this big hero shot of like the team standing there like defiantly saying, hey, we're taking her home. So yeah, we get action scenes, we get them, firing off blasts, like, like there's beams coming from the orbs, like attacking Katana and whatever. At one point, Metamorpho like makes like a big like box to keep them in, right? It's like a big light bulb kind of idea that keeps them all contained. Just a lot of stuff, and I'll give them credit. They did a good job here of keeping this somewhat interesting to follow, given that there's not really any geography, because we're in kind of a weird void, and there's just lots of these colors kind of like splashed around, and then the villains they're fighting are just these balls of color. So it could be very easy for this to just feel like a mess, and it does kind of work as it is. But yeah, fun stuff. Halo even helps a little bit by using a light illusion to help Batman and Black Lightning get to her so they can free her. So, and at one point even the orbs have Geoforce and Katana sort of like subdued, and Halo's like, no, you can take me instead, just let them go. Ultimately the team win with Metamorpho becoming a giant copper wire and running through all of the orbs, and then Black Lightning electrocutes him so that it sparks all of them. So yeah, fun moment.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, I don't know. It's simple. It works. I liked at the end here. Batman kind of turns and says, "Hey, we could end your entire race with just a few more volts." And then he smirks and says, "We won't. Just remember that we could." And it's like, yeah, of course, he's not going to actually do it. But Batman just waving that threat in their face is just, I don't know, kind of chuckle worthy to me. But yes, so yeah, the orbs at the end as they're leaving with Halo saved, but the Unity's still incomplete, and Batman just kind of says, "Remind me to feel sorry for you." He just kind of cracks a joke. It's like just a little thing. So yeah, honestly, the only kind of downer is at the end of the issue when they get back and Katana's all happy they've got Halo back. Halo does get a bit sappy and says, "Oh no, things aren't the same because I've stolen this body from Violet. What if she wasn't fully dead? What if I took someone's life?" And Katana's like, "She was a little shithead. She was awful. Like, you've taken a gift of life. You're a much better person." I do appreciate though that when Halo says she has to be alone and she flies off, she does specifically say, "I'll be back." Like this isn't me like leaving for good. Like we're not trying to pretend that this is like a goodbye forever. I just need to be alone right now. So I appreciated them not trying to be like, "Oh, Halo's still like separate from the team." It's just no. She's going to go off and cool off. Maybe she'll be gone for an issue or two. Maybe not. I don't know. I have no idea.
Halo will return in The Outsiders.
So honestly, it's the only thing in the issue that rubbed me a little wrong. Just because it was like immediately we have to get kind of sad again, right at the very end. But for the most part, I like this quite a bit because I think the way Halo was being held against her will and being forced to turn in to what she'd gotten away from because she sympathized with life and wanted to be life, it felt oddly kind of like the most impactful in terms of themes that the book's ever had. So it felt like they had the most to say of any issue so far. I think the team's determination to go and save her and then the relief in her face when they get there is just a great payoff of how much we care about them as an ensemble now, how much we care about Katana and Halo's relationship. So yeah, honestly, it's hard not to kind of see this as kind of a win. And to be honest, the mystery of who Halo's been has been something that's been running around since the very first issue of this book. So this does feel like a big deal to kind of finally pay off this larger story. So yeah, I'm going to go 8.5. It probably would be higher if it wasn't just one for that last page been a bit of a downer, and just I don't know, maybe something to spice up the action with the orbs a little bit more than it is. But it's impressive just how much it isn't a mess, even as it is, just because it would be very easy for it to be a mess.
So I pulled up the Halo wiki, and it's gonna go places. She'll come back, and yeah, there's almost an Always Sunny vibe to one of the things that's gonna happen. So
all right. Yeah. No spoilies. I'll get there.
No, none. But in case people were watching and they saw me chuckle as you were talking, as I read what happens next, and yeah, very funny.
All right. We'll get there. But no, solid issue. It felt like everyone, especially since there was that moment in the last issue where they all kind of felt a bit awkward when we found out what she was and they didn't really know how to react to it. Seeing them all come together to come and save her and let her have this new life, even if she feels conflicted now about this guilt overtaking Violet's body. Yeah, it still felt kind of heartwarming, and it's kind of what's good about a serialized team book is you get to build this kind of friendships between them. So yeah, that's Batman and the Outsiders 24. That was all right.
Sure it wasn't 23?
No, 24. Pretty sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's always possible that I've accidentally altered the number twice, so I've went up one too many.
Yeah. Well, I just pulled it up. I was reading the wiki as you were going. I believe I put in 23. So, but either way, it was the newest issue. Yeah,
it's the next one that I did. I didn't skip any. I know that much. Maybe I've written the wrong number. Next up, on the Patreon book, it was Planetary issue 7. So this is always an interesting book to go into because like it is very like standalones. Even though there's definitely some things that have been carrying over. The last issue, of course, set up the villainous Fantastic Four style team, which was a really cool issue actually. But when I talked about that last time. This one's a bit weirder and less to my taste because it kind of introduces their version of John Constantine.
Yeah, which this is the last one I remember reading, so now I'll try to read when you read them too. This is the last one I remember reading, and I was like, oh, Pete's gonna love when he gets to 7 because it's a Constantine story, and we all know how Pete feels about Constantine.
Yeah, I just like, it basically starts off with the Jaquita saying, hey, there's a funeral for this guy, Jack Carter. Drummer doesn't really seem to like him, but it's indicated that Jaquita and this Jack had a bit of a fling. But they go to the funeral, or we don't even see a funeral. They just we see them kind of talking about the funeral after it, but they're in.
Well, it's kind of the ode to Vertigo, to the imprint, because as they're looking, it looks like Death and Dream are sitting on the bench as they're at their grave, right? And it looks like they're mourning somebody, and then the next page has what I assume are a bunch of versions of Vertigo characters.
It looks kind of like Swamp Thing, one of the characters.
Animal Man.
Yeah, there's an Animal Man looking dude with the sort of goggles. Is that like meant to be like an Etrigan version? I
believe, and then I think behind them it's meant to be the Doom Patrol, right?
Oh, I was thinking Metal Man because there was 2 metal looking dudes.
Well, that's over on the right, but behind Swamp Thing and Animal Man, it's some very weird looking people that I assumed were supposed to be the Doom Patrol.
Okay,
yeah,
regardless though, like there's even a moment where they look up at the sky and there's what looks like Superman flying past the moon. It's in silhouette, so you can't see like exactly who it is, but
just a big red cape though.
Yeah. So yeah, it does this thing though where she basically recounts a story that he told, and we get this kind of like very like negative space, just big panels with like the story being told in the white space. Of this story of this, what do you call him, Constantine, this Jack Carter, who's like walking through the streets. It's like after he's been with a prostitute, I think was what I picked up from it. But he sees a ghost who's not meant to be there, or at the very least he's not meant to see the ghost. And the ghost realizes that he's been seen, and he knows he's not supposed to be seen, so he starts just having this chat with this ghost about why he's here. And it's nearly Christmas, or whatever, and he's there to like kill a newborn because the newborn might be the second coming, and his employers again, I'm like, wait, ghosts have employers? Okay, go on. Want to like stop this. So basically Jack Carter of course stops this from happening. Turns out he makes like a sort of like prison for this ghost. It's like a cube that he can't walk outside of. Which is a fun transition at the end actually, because he realizes that he can't leave. He kind of bangs on these invisible walls, and then he sort of like just hugs this street sign, like the post, and then it transitions to the present day with our 3 main characters walking through the same street, and there's just like a sort of ghost skeleton at the bottom of this like street sign, and it's like, okay, so this is like, this idea that it's still there, like this. Where this got kind of weird for me, though, is that the characters, like, Drummer starts to sense that there's been magic here, and he kind of explains that magic is just energy and information, so it falls into his, like, power set of being able to sort of detect that it's there. He compares it to, like, cheat codes in a video game. That's what magic is in the real world, so they're like, okay, there's something's happened here, and then this weird superhero character shows up. I say superhero, but he's got a cape and a mask and whatnot. He looks a bit deranged. He looks like a superhero's been on the meth. Anyway, he shows up and he starts yelling about this Jack Carter and how he should be dead. And but the team have just sort of realized that maybe he faked his death because of what they're seeing in this magic sort of echo. But out of nowhere, this big bulky guy in the superhero cape gets a shotgun blast from behind. We see his guts come splattering towards the theoretical camera. It's a really grotesque image. It really pops as well because of the red background. Because everything else is all muted blues or white negative space, and then you've got this just bright red panel. But it's him. It's a bald version of this Constantine character.
Definitely not resembling the person that the visage I think of immediately when I hear the name Grant Morrison. Definitely doesn't resemble Grant at all.
I could see that. Yeah, so Jaquita kisses him, and he basically goes on about how he knew this guy wanted him dead, so he faked his death, expected them to come in and just kind of, or didn't expect them to come in, but sort of like had to act quickly because they were here, and killed them. So yeah, it ends in this really weird moment where he just kind of says, the 80s are long over, time to move on, time to be someone else. And he just walks off into the darkness. And he says, I'll be seeing you. And then that's how the issue ends. And I have to be honest, this is maybe the first one where I just didn't really know what the ending was trying to tell me.
So as he goes off and he's bald and he kind of resembles Morrison, who is so, when you think of Morrison, you think of Vertigo in that era, you think immediately of Morrison, right? And here, if you look at his chest when he takes off the jacket, right? Now he looks like Spider Jerusalem from Transmetropolitan, right? Which was another, he was another type Constantine-like character. So it's almost as if, like, yeah, the 80s are over. The Spider becomes who Constantine was representing. So it's always it's a constant changeover, right? Which is kind of what Planetary's been studying. Okay,
well,
right?
See, I've never read Planetary, so I didn't really get that. My brain never clicked to this looks like Grant Morrison, so this ending just kind of left me feeling kind of underwhelmed, and I didn't quite get what it was going for. Other than just maybe this idea of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say nostalgia, but because early on there's a lot of reminiscing early on, like when they're talking to the other characters, they say, wait, is there superheroes here? And someone says, yeah, Jenny Sparks had a team in the 80s, and they do bring up the 80s like earlier on in the issue, and whatnot. And what's funny is he says the 80s are long gone, and I'm like, this was written in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
The 80s have been twice as long gone at this point.
Yeah.
Just to feel old.
So Transmit was written by Warren Ellis, and it was put out by Vertigo from 97 to 2002. So, and it's Ellis that's doing Planetary, right?
Yeah.
So this is him basically saying that Constantine was kind of the inspiration for his character, and that's how he's putting him on through here. Which again, I like that concept.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's making a bit more sense now we're talking about it. I certainly never got those ties there. Maybe this is just a case of like having not been a bit more familiar with those other books. It's kind of hindered this one a little bit. Definitely felt a bit more mixed on this one. I mean, there was some cool stuff in there. The trapping the ghost in the cube was fun. The weird alternate version of the Vertigo characters was kind of an interesting little touch as well. It definitely feels like it was doing some meta things here. I will admit, though, that after that last issue that set up this villainous team, and that was like a really cool introduction to them, it was almost a little bit of a downer, like just going to do something else with this issue, especially since it didn't get quite as interesting as like some of the other issues have. So I think for me, this one is probably definitely a bit lower down rating-wise. It's probably more kind of in that 7-ish range. But again, it's a bit more of a personal thing, and just it not clicking for me quite as much. But I mean, the art's solid again, as it has been. Like I say, lots of use of negative space. I think the choice to like go very different with that flashback story, where it kind of like, if I count it, it might even exactly be this. So the first part of that story, where she's sort of recounting the story that this Constantine style character told her, there's only 2 panels, right, on this first page of the story, and all the text is in the white negative space, and that's consistent throughout, other than dialogue. But on the second page, there's 3 panels. On the third, there's 5. I was thinking it was going to be 1 extra panel each page, but it does get more and more until like the end of the stories, of that flashback. So it's just an interesting little touch. It makes you feel like it's speeding up as you're reading it. So there's some nice touches in there. But yeah, bit of 7, I would say, for this one. So, all right, well, we'll see what the next one's like. I like the front cover of the next one, because it just, it came up next when I went next. It's got like a sci-fi monster movie poster thing going. Yeah, so,
like the B era from the late 40s to the 60s.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board for that sort of shenanigans. All right, let's wrap up the show with our picks of each thing of the week. We do our panel/moment of the week, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top five books. So, what was your panel / moment of the week?
All right, so we talked about a little of them as we were going this week, but Wonder Woman in Absolute Wonder Woman scaling Prometheus Mountain, right? And then
That's a good one.
gets over, and there's this big image of Prometheus chained up there, and it just gives it this big epic scale. That was in the running. Another one from Wonder Woman, but this was in the Tom King Wonder Woman, the main one, as Diana's coming into the White House, and the Sovereign is hiding behind the desk. When she goes to confront him, she just picks it up with one hand, right? And he's left there cowering, and she's holding this desk. That one's good as well. But my moment of the week is going to be from Black Canary Best of the Best, the scene at the lake, right, where she takes off the wig and she leans on her mom, and it just, as someone who lost their mom, it hits some emotional heartstrings, you know. So it was nice to see Diana be able to be vulnerable in that moment.
Yeah, I think, Diana climbing the mountain was a really good moment. I also really loved that like full page crazy mad scientist Hector Hammond from Green Lantern. That was just kind of a really fun kind of vibe. Oh, yeah. I also really like the page in Wonder Woman where it reveals the liar carving.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
simple.
A nice one because it's paced well.
Yeah, it builds to it. You're building for the reveal of, okay, what did she make him carve, and or what did he like choose to carve based, because she always doesn't really tell him what to. She says, you know what to do. No. And so it's almost like his own personal introspection of like what he conceives as what she would want. And it's just kind of perfect because it's the opposite of what everything she stands for, which is truth. So that said, though, I'm going mad scientist Hector Hammond for the funds because I didn't expect it. So
yeah,
I'm going with that. But you know, it's close. It's definitely close. All right, covers of the week. I've not really had a chance to look at them. If you've got any at the ready, Matt.
Yeah, so there's a couple. There was a cool Superman one. That's the Nakayama variant, and it's just Lois as Superwoman, and it's on the blue background. So it stands out a whole lot. I like that one. Wonder Woman has one that is the come on, pull it up. The Mora variant that's got Diana holding the flag. Well, yeah, she's holding the flag and it's trailing behind her, and she's coming down. It's, you know, it makes for a big epic, right? Absolute Wonder Woman, the main cover, I really like. It's got her holding the Nemesis. Right, and it's, you know, it makes her face look a little bit angular, but I think it works because I feel like it's supposed to be a little bit unsettling. And then the last ones I want to bring up, and which includes my actual pick, there is a Nathan Surdy variant that's got Hot Girl and Zatanna on it. That from far away looks pretty good, but when I clicked on it, I was like, a little bit rough. But we all know there's a Jenny Frisian cover, and this one happens to have Diana for Justice League Unlimited. And yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going for this week. I mean, there's a Lee Hermo cover for Batman, which is kind of. I mean, it's funny though because he's just done his version of Joker, which is very, you know, like Heath Ledger-esque. But he also has Hush and the Bandages, which is kind of cool. I mean, honestly though, I feel like the main Wonder Woman cover is just kind of the one that's sticking out. I also like the main Green Lantern cover as well, to be fair. But I think the main Wonder Woman cover is what I'm going to pick.
All right.
So, all right, Kill. What is your art of the week?
All right, so this is down to 3, right? I got Absolute Martian Manhunter. I got Black Canary Best of the Best. And I got Wonder Woman. All for different reasons, right? Martian Manhunter is a straight up trip. Again, never done drugs, so I'm presupposing here. There's a lot going on there in that art. And then Black Canary Best of the Best is just some really solid storytelling. And then we always give it to Sempere, right? So like, it's just Sempere. It's consistent. There's been a style to it. The breakdowns are there. The way that it does action. And we don't know if he's going to be back for Wonder Woman anytime soon. And ultimately, you know, I think that beats out the other two just by a hair. So it's going to be Sempere for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, yeah, Sempere's obviously a possible pick. I'm looking in, like, I mean, there's a lot of art I like this week. I don't know. I think it is still Sempere for me, just kind of without giving it too much thought. Obviously, Sook's good. I kind of did like some of Jim Lee's art in Batman. I like the Green Lantern art. But I think I have to just still give it to Sempere for Wonder Woman. It's just so goddamn good.
Yep.
All right, top 5 books, Matt. Go.
All right. Number 1 is going to be Wonder Woman. Number 2 is going to be Black Canary, Best of the Best. 3 is Absolute Martian. No, 3 is Absolute Wonder Woman. 4 is Absolute Martian Manhunter. And then 5 is, if I can remember all my... 5 is Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween.
All right. God. I'm going to go number 1 is Wonder Woman. Number 2 is Absolute Martian Manhunter. Number 3 is Green Lantern. 4 is Absolute Wonder Woman, and 5 is Last Halloween. I think I'll throw that in there. That was tough because I feel like I had a lot that were kind of around the same.
Yeah, mine were a log jammed, especially at the end. But I do know that my top 3 are boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, this has been such a long damn recording. I mean, getting me on here.
That's on me for things that are happening at the house today.
Yeah. So let's just have a look and see what's coming next week from DC Comics. Coming up, we have Absolute Superman issue 6, Absolute Green Lantern issue 1. So we get another new Absolute book next week. Poison Ivy 32, Batgirl 6, Birds of Prey 20, JSA 6, Two-Face 5, The Atom Project issue 4, Secret 6 issue 2, Resurrection Man Quantum Karma issue 1. That's a new Ram V book, so I actually didn't notice that when I was looking ahead earlier, so it's a pleasant surprise. Wayne Family Adventures 158, Teen Titans Go issue 2, and then some reprints and facsimiles as you do. So yeah, a couple of interesting number 1s next week. We got Ram V's new book and Absolute Green Lantern to check out, as well as some other favorites and whatnot. So should be a fun and later than this week. So
yes,
I welcome it. So let us know what you thought of the books. Of course, you can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Help keep it coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.